Do 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 ba 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 rant. Ba ba ba. Oh, that's horrible. Sorry, my throat is thrashed. I was just serenading Bob off mic, and it was much better than that. And now I feel horrible that I've started the show this way. I'm just going to sit here in an awkward silence and pontificate. No, no, I'm not. Welcome to tonight's show. We have our good friend, and I guess he's like a guest host. He comes in every once in a while for a spot of tea and joins us as we wax poetic about all things pop culture and whatnot. But I'm very happy to say that tonight we have Bob Rose in the house, and he's in the digital green room right now, and we are doing another top 5 list. Sorry, it's a top 5 list. And sorry, I was just thinking in my head of like, God, why do I always start shows in such an awkward way? Like, why can't I just open a show with a welcome to the show? It's always got to be some singing or like just start the show normal. Just start, hey, what's up? It's Jeff. How you doing? Welcome. We're doing a show tonight. Blah 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 blah. That's how it starts. That's how it's starting the show right now. There. Okay. In any case, we got Bob Rose. He's here. We're talking. He came up with this idea. This was his idea, and it's a great idea. I love the top 5 or the list format. Bob and I have done this several times before. We've done this on his channel. We've done this on my channel. And I said, Bob, it's time. We want to do a top, a listicle thing. And we were trying to figure out what it was. Bob said, how about threequels? So threequels it is. And I'll bring him in, and he'll let him elaborate further on that. So without further ado, calling Bob Rose from the digital green room backstage.
Oh,
hey,
we're really big. Oh, there we are.
Hey now.
What's up?
Hey now. How you doing, Bob?
All right. And what a weird topic, right? Like, you know what I thought about while I was
Perfect, Bob.
making my list was like
Yeah.
like you're making this list and you're like, there's no way to not be a hack with this list because movie franchises that last that long are there's only so many. And so the pickings are kind of slim for this category we've chosen. So you kind of have to have a hackish list. If you go, and there's nothing that I truly love that's like truly love that's off the beaten path too much for threequels. So that
That
kind of
is not
sucks.
the case for me.
Good, because I don't want to overlap too much.
I'm surprised. I don't know. I actually wanted to run this by you.
Yeah,
we always do. So Bob and I, when we do our top 5 lists or our whatever, our listicle, I don't know what you call this thing. We've done top 10 and top 5.
I've been doing it
top,
on my podcast too. It's just a good conversation.
It's great. I love it. You're the perfect person to do it with. So when we do our top of the pops list, it's always like if we have an overlapping one, we just sort of cancel it out. And because it's possible to do runner-ups and things, I think the new rule moving forward, the new rule should be that if someone else has taken your thing, that you should replace your thing with one of your runner-ups. It automatically knocks it out of the slot, and that might like cause things to run a little bit longer, but I think it will be a little bit more interesting. But you have to admit that someone has knocked one of your movies out, and I'm now subbing it in. So it's kind of like playing. It's kind of like playing horse, but not at all. If that makes any sense.
No, totally. And it also, like, the thing is I love a lot of my runner-ups. So it's not like it's a hard decision, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So okay, that's good. Now to start us off here, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you lead us into what exactly a threequel is, or what a threequel qualifies as, and then I want to. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Begin.
Oh, I was gonna say the reason when you asked me to do this that I didn't say sequel is because I knew that would be infinitely easier. Number 2s in the world of cinema are just the most prevalent thing possible.
What about
Threequels.
quads? Quads would be hard.
I didn't want to jump right to 4. I thought maybe one day you might ask me again. And I'll be like, let's do number 4s.
Okay.
Because that's even harder.
Okay.
You know? And then one day, number 5s, which is like,
oh my God.
so hard.
Rarefied air.
God, I don't even know if I could do that. Yeah, but I didn't want like number 2s. I feel like also like with my taste as it is, I don't know how you feel about this, Jeff, but I love so many number 2s so much. Like
I always love a good number 2.
A lot of my favorite movies of all time are number 2s. You know what I mean? And it's funny saying that out loud because it's like a lot of my favorite movies are literal shit. Number 2.
Who does number 2 work for?
Right. Right. I'm a genuine lover of sequels, and I do not feel guilty in the least.
Me too.
Right.
And Bob, why don't you just tell everybody your feelings about canon and your rigidity in regards to canon?
Well, it's not like I disregard movies that are made and it like a retcon. I don't disregard like retcons because the filmmakers intended that, and I will watch the movie with the retcon in mind. For example, the new Halloween movies or Texas Chainsaw Massacre has retconned like 4 times. Hellbound is a great movie. Responding to Dan.
What's up, Dan? Welcome to the stream.
It's a great movie. It's not a 3 though. That's a 2. That's number 2.
Doesn't count, Dan.
It doesn't count. Doesn't count. So I really enjoy when a series keeps the continuity and the new filmmaker has to work with what's been given to them. I enjoy that as an exercise. I don't like just throwing everything away. Like, even if it's the worst movie ever that came before, you work with what you got, and that's the creative
baton.
That's the creative exercise. I think we've talked about it in your channel before, is on the biggest world stage, I feel like Marvel did a great job with this with Age of Ultron. They didn't disregard Age of Ultron, and it became a pivotal movie, even though most people hate it. Like that
I always liked it. I never had a problem with it.
I'm not trying to review Age of Ultron at all. I'm just saying the way that they treated the events of the story in Age of Ultron going forward was always with reverence. And even though it's kind of the one that's like the, redheaded stepchild type thing of that. So so I like in horror franchises, you got many of those disregarded sequels that they try to wash away. And I'm like, no, don't wash them away. They happened.
Wash away.
And now be creative and use the events. Just because it was executed badly doesn't mean the events can't be used for later properly, right? Like the story events, right?
Sure.
For example, too, I would point to tonal differences. Jeff, like, I love the movie Creed, right? Creed's a good movie. But tonally speaking, you watch Creed, and when they talk about how his father died, you think in your brain about the tone of Rocky IV, which I absolutely adore, but it's not remotely congruent, is it?
No, it's not.
At all. It's not at all. It doesn't work like that. But they use it like it's a deep, powerful, moving experience for Creed's growth as a character. But no matter what they do, it's still Rocky IV, which is great.
I can actually speak, I can actually kind of speak personally to this in my own experience, in my own work, in the sense that I made a sequel to a movie that doesn't actually exist.
Correct.
And the tone of the original movie was like super serious, like super dead serious, like revenge thriller. And the sequel is a goofy, punch up of trying to be like John Waters with film noir, like just ridiculous.
Every actor's chewing scenery.
Yeah, and tried to like mix the two things together. And you know what I've learned, and it's the same thing with Reanimator, it's the same thing with Return of the Living Dead. What makes it possible to mesh tones like that, your actors have to have conviction. If they treat,
and your filmmakers.
Yeah, of course. You have to treat it seriously. Whatever it is, if you treat it seriously, you will create a tone that might be both serious and ridiculous all at the same time.
Correct.
And it makes for an interest. It can make for an interesting film.
It'd be like if I made a dramatic sequel to my shorts with the same characters,
precisely,
and it's taken completely seriously. Right. It's possible. I could do that.
You could do My Cousin Vinny with Lon Pickleman.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoy watching, especially in the golden age of like the 80s and 90s, when they actually, for some reason, totally respected canon, and and each one had to start where the other one left off. You know, looking at the Fridays,
precious respect.
I enjoy that. I'm open to the new filmmaker coming in with their vision, but I'm like, you had to start where the other guy finished. It's kind of like an exquisite corpse. Chucky. But it's an exquisite corpse of a franchise, right? You got to start where the other filmmaker ended.
Yeah.
I enjoy that, and I think that makes it
dead.
Right. I think that makes it more fun, to be honest. Makes the whole franchise more fun, even if the entries are bad.
I dig that. I really dig your take on that. I do. I really do. And to start us off, this movie does not count in either one of our lists because of a private conversation that Bob and I had, but I would be remiss. We would be remiss not to mention it. Bob brought it up as an example, and I was like, Bob, I'm like, maybe that would have been on my list. Now you like brought it up. Like, now
it's not on
mine.
I said it. I said it wouldn't be on mine. I said that.
Right. Well, it's sticking from the record now. I can't in good conscience. I can in good conscience use it in the way that I wanted to use it. So I just wanted to start off by highlighting it. Because not only are we doing threequels, we're doing horror threequels.
Yeah.
Which brings us into the territory of franchise and everything that Bob just said so eloquently about how, exquisite corpses and, precious franchise, holding the continuity canon precious. And the horror threequel is a particular breed of animal. You see, in non-horror threequels, you're typically capping off a trilogy of films. Typically, this is a gross generalization.
We naturally view 3 as an ending or chunk, like Star Wars is 3 threes. We just had 3. We have 2 threes of Jurassic Park. It all feels like that's the set.
Everything ends and everything ends in a 3. So the mindset of the threequel top 5 would be super different if it was non-horror. So keeping it horror adds a little extra interesting sort of thing to it, in the sense that a threequel really doesn't mean jack shit in the realm of horror. It's just one of many numbers. Whereas in non-horror films, it is generally, it's the end. It's the end cap, it's the punctuation.
I don't know, Jeff, if we could think of Veronica, that doesn't have 2 more movies, does it?
What's up, Lynn?
If we could think for 1 second before we get into it, because I didn't consider this while making my list of
what is talk about that movie too, real quick.
Well, I was going to say, what is my favorite threequel of all time? And here's the thing is, I'm thinking in my mind, and I'm wondering if it might actually be my number 1 on this list.
Wow. So
I don't know. I'd have to really think about it.
Damn, dog.
Yeah, I have to really think about it.
For me, it's got to be either Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome or Return of the Jedi. One of the 2.
Return of the Jedi. I do love that.
I mean, though, it has to be one of those 2.
A rare defender of Back to the Future 3 too.
I like Back to the Future 3. Here's the other thing too. Here's another thing.
Yeah.
A non-horror threequel is going to generally speaking, leave you in a lighthearted, good place. Sans Revenge of the Sith.
It was probably also planned too. I feel like horror ones are just sequels that were greenlit, whereas like the ones we're talking about, if you say Return of the King, Return of the Jedi, they at least were greenlit with number 2. You know what I mean? Like they were planned out.
Yeah.
They weren't just like as the went along. It was
Matrix Revolutions.
Well, that was greenlit with
I know.
Right.
I know.
And I do look, I've grown to love the ending of Matrix Resolution. So don't. That's another podcast
Oh
altogether.
shit! You know, we talked.
I would. That
Bob
wouldn't
was
be on my
actually
list.
on. Bob was on the. I'm not smoking, by the way. This is not a cigarette. This is a piece. This is a paper straw. I just like to tell people.
Just like to
it's
hold
not.
it. I can hold
I
a
just
pen
like to
if you
hold it.
want. Just hold a pen.
I've been super stressed lately, and I have taken up to holding a pretend cigarette in my hands as a place I used to smoke, but I feel very self-conscious doing it, and so I've been saying on my channel a lot that this is not real because I don't want people to think that I'm smoking.
It's fine if it is. It's fine.
I know it is.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong if it was, but I just don't want people to think that I've taken up smoking again.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's it. I really didn't even need to say anything at all, but I did. So I did. Whatever. In any case, so the movie that was stricken from the record for either one of our lists is Scream 3.
Yeah.
Now Scream 3 is almost again also breathing rarefied air in that it's a special type of horror threequel for a few reasons. One, it actually works as that final conclusion that just works so well that we were talking about in non-horror trilogies. It ends on such a wonderful note. Nothing makes me happier than the ending of Scream 3. That's number one. Number two, it really does complete a final, in general, even in horror, you do think of things in trilogies. You can, I mean, there's tropes, trilogy tropes as they talk about in Scream. So, this is a movie that sort of embodies all of that. Scream 3. A lot of people hate Scream 3. I have never hated Scream 3.
You're the person in my life that loves Scream 3.
I'm a fierce
you're like that guy.
Defender of Scream 3 for a very simple reason, in that Sydney has a very clear arc. The movies don't revolve around Ghostface. They revolve around Sydney. It's Sydney's story. It's a final girl story, and it concludes perfectly, concisely. The character arc completes at the end of Scream 3. She leaves her gate wide open. She's open to the world. She doesn't need to hide anymore. Like all these things, all these symbolic things. It's perfect, man. And yes, it gets a little clunky. Yes, it gets a little Scooby-Dooey, but like, who gives a shit, man? It's a great friggin'
I really want to say
man.
I don't hate Scream 3. It wouldn't be on my list. I don't love it to the degree you do, but I am not one of the haters of Scream 3. I'm quite fine with it.
I just think it's the
also it merges two movie universes, so
it sure does.
It sure does. So yeah,
it sure does. That's Jay and Silent Bob. And here's the other thing too. This is what really what
a weird thing, right? It's still to this day I can't believe that happened. It's the absolute weirdest thing.
It's bizarre. One last thing before we move on. What makes Scream 3 such a unique threequel is that it deviates from the formula in a way that nobody is thinking of. It's also a ghost story, and it's also an exorcism story. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. Her mother's ghost haunts her, and she needs to put her mother's unfinished business to rest before her mother's spirit can be free. And it's beautiful, man. I mean, it's great. It's super interesting. Nobody ever chimes in on this,
I think Jeff, listening to you, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I feel like you talking about Scream 3 reminds me of myself talking about Star Trek 5.
Holy shit.
Because I'm a fierce defender of the character arcs.
The odd numbers.
Well, the one that everybody hates. The one that everybody hates. Like,
yeah,
I'm a fierce defender of the character arcs and the character moments in that movie that everybody dislikes. And I feel like you're doing the same thing with Scream 3.
I maybe so, but it's just I just people.
And you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I mean, people just they just beat the crap out of Scream 3. I'm like, do you not see that this is like that they are wrapping up a ghost story that A begins in before Scream 1. B, it's like it really is these three films are perfectly self-encapsulated. We go back to the unfinished business of the mother, which wraps up the trilogy. It's perfect, man.
I mean, I know we made a joke about it, but I think honestly, if Jay and Silent Bob didn't happen in that movie, like I feel like that moment literally makes people hate it, because if there was any doubt in their mind, it gets to that moment and they're like, "Oh, Wes didn't care."
Right.
A cynic can't get through that part and take the movie
I think
seriously anymore.
it's the Scooby-Doo tone that nobody can get over, and
Right.
it's but I just kind of go like the whole fucking series is Scooby-Doo. What are you
To some
talking
degree, yeah.
about?
It's very
The
self-aware, so
Scooby-Doo,
yeah.
the Dewey is straight out of a Scooby-Doo movie 1,000 times over in all 3 movies. You know what I'm saying? And
Honestly, in a better world, I would love to see Jay and Silent Bob like having a type of Scream mystery they have to solve.
sure, that would be
That'd
fucking
be
great.
incredible. Like, I
Kevin
kind of
Smith,
wish
that's the movie we want to see from
that's
you,
kind of
man.
what you should be doing, Kevin Smith.
Well, he was going to do the Jaws version of that
Yeah,
with
right.
Jay and Silent Bob with Moose Jaws, but that's a story
For a different
for
time.
talk about threequels that need to come to fruition. But
He should have just made 3 Tusk movies, and it's a different animal every time.
yeah,
with
that would have
the
been
through
great.
line of the same, characters.
You'd have you'd have a walrus. There should have been a moose for sure instead of Moose Jaws. Just have a moose, and then maybe an elephant just to make things really
whatever
spicy.
whatever tickles his fancy.
Yeah. What about a whooping crane would be interesting choice. All right, let's launch into these. Let's launch into our films. We're gonna take a commercial break in about 10 minutes. Okay, Bob, you start us off with your number one. Now that we got Scream 3 out of the way.
No, it's Scream 3, which is not on my list.
I did put it on a mantle. I put it on the mantle.
I put it on my honorable mentions only because I was just barfing out Threequels I like.
Cheers.
So it did make my honorable mentions, but we won't talk about it again.
Cheers.
Okay, so this is a very hard list to make, and I thought about it to extent. My number 5 is a movie that I feel like is, not one of the most popular of its franchise, but I really like it for several reasons, and it is Phantasm 3.
Oh, good choice, Bob.
So I love Phantasm 3, and it's the one that I saw the most when I was a kid. And I think that I will agree, in watching them as an adult, I actually love every Phantasm movie, even Ravager.
Oh my God.
Which honestly looks like I made it.
It looks like you made it.
Yeah, it looks like I made it by myself with nobody's help.
Why haven't you done that?
I'll make Phantasm 6 without anyone's permission. Phantasm 3, I think, is the one that is the least cerebral and the most visceral and goopy and gory and simple, and it also has this wedged in Home Alone. I'm glad people like it, Amy. Thank you. It's
Amy.
It's the one that is the least weird, even though I love all the Phantasm movies. It's the one that on the surface is the most understandable, if that makes sense.
Can I chime in here for 1 second?
Absolutely.
Just to say that you said it perfectly. When I think of the Phantasm movies in general are very patchwork and incoherent in their canonicity, whatever you want to call it. When I think of like what the status quo of Phantasm is, I think of Phantasm 3. If that makes any sense.
That's interesting to me. I think most people would say Phantasm 2. That's what I would understand.
Yeah, but the dude is not in the movie. What's his face is not.
I know, but I feel like that's the one I see at horror conventions. They asked if Ravager was a sci-fi movie. Ravager was a web series.
Yes,
that was edited into a feature film.
720p. Shot in 720p.
Look, it has good intentions, and I think the story actually works. It is not. Did not have a budget. But anyway. I also I enjoy the fact that I don't know if he's ever spoken about this, but this whole Home Alone kid that was wedged into Phantasm 3 that storyline with the Home Alone kid,
right?
It's supremely odd, and I don't know if he did it because he was trying to parody Home Alone or because
he has a gun.
It's like a weird Home Alone parody that I'm like, is it hateful or are they just trying to capitalize on Home Alone?
He doesn't use traps. He just uses a gun to solve his problems.
Right. But I think out of all of them, it's the one you could actually jump into easiest, even over the first one. I love Phantasm 2.
Amy says that Phantasm 2 does not get the attention that it deserves.
I agree. but Lord of the Dead is the most accessible of all the movies, and it's the one that I want to revisit the most. So that's why it goes on my list.
Talk about not respecting canon. Those Phantasm movies, cuckoo.
Yeah, they got like a Highlander thing going on.
Right. Oh my God.
Just like every sequel is just like, what happened here?
Dude. Highlander. Oh my Lord. That's a whole conversation.
That's a whole different one. But yeah, I do love Phantasm 3, and I'm glad somebody else does, and you too, because it's a weird choice.
To me, that's the status quo. In the same way that that Evil Dead 2 is kind of like the status quo of Ash is, right? Like like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Does that conclude your first pick right there, or did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's the only thing I'd add is that you were talking about the patchwork of the Phantasm movies. I remember I watched the whole Joe Bob marathon with all the Phantasms.
Oh my God.
And I think 3 wasn't actually in there. It was like 1, 2, 4, and 5. But the whole time he just said he loves these movies dearly, and he still
everybody does.
And he openly said on the show, I have no fucking clue what any of this means.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
I like that about the Phantasm movies, is you can take away what you want.
For my number one, again,
number five.
All right, Bob, you're gonna hate me. Mine are not in any order. They never are. It's too agonizing.
Top 5, dude. Okay,
but Bob, it's too fucking hard, man. For me, I think of top 5. I appreciate that. When I think of top 5, I just think these are 5 here. They're all in my hand. They're not stacked on top of one another. Here's 5.
I'm just going to assume order. I'm assuming that the way that you say them are 5 to 1. I'm just going to assume that.
Fuck.
That's how I'm operating. But you don't have to ignore me.
I'm just operating. No. Fine.
I'm
so now that's how I'm going to do it. Then that's how I'm going to do it, Bob. God damn it. All right. Ready?
Yes.
So I guess fine. I'll try and do this in an order. God damn it. All right. So my number 5 is From Dusk Till Dawn 3, The Hangman's Daughter.
Oh my God.
Woo! Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Okay. I've seen it once, Jeff. Once.
Okay. There's a lot to say here. I'll try to have some brevity, something I lack.
Bruce Campbell's in that one, right?
No, he is not.
He's the second one. He's in the
What's
second
up,
one.
Michelle? How are you? Yes, I still have the fake cigarette. I gave the whole explanation as to why I have the fake cigarette. Thank you for noticing. Hope you are well. Okay. So talk about movies that were greenlit back to back. Texas Blood Money and Hangman's Daughter were greenlit back to back. I was ecstatic. From Dusk Till Dawn, one of my favorite films in general.
Same.
Grindhouse before it's Grindhouse. People don't really, that's my hot take, is that this is actually the first Grindhouse. It just happens to be in one movie. And the way that works is the first half of From Dusk Till Dawn is pure Quentin Tarantino. It's a crime thriller. And the second half is Desperado 1.5 in a bar with vampires, man. And it's just like, what a twist, right? I'll never forget the girl I was seeing at the time in college. She didn't know anything about From Dusk Till Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
She was watching it blind, and I wasn't even watching the movie. I was watching her because I wanted to see her reaction when they were all vampires. I was just so curious to see.
It's the perfect movie for that, right?
Oh my God,
it's the perfect movie.
So I love this franchise, and at the time, Texas Blood Money has grown on me over the years, but at the time, I always felt like it was a letdown. Bruce Campbell is in the opening scene with Kelly Kapowski,
right?
Tiffany Amber Thiessen for a spot cameo, which really let me down at the time. Directed by Scott Spiegel, of course, who was in the Raimi crew and whatnot.
Yeah.
He did a movie called Intruder, also a very Tarantino-esque film, Texas Blood Money. When you revisit it, lots of.
I mean, they were trying to mimic his style.
Totally.
Right? I mean, that's what the point was, right?
Yeah, for sure. The third one is actually a prequel, and it takes place in the Old West. And spoilers, if you haven't seen a fucking 20-something odd year old movie, the titty twister, the bar, it sits on top of this Mayan pyramid, and that, or whatever, just like some sort of indigenous South American pyramid. I don't know if it's Aztec or Mayan. It's supposed to be one of those cultures. Inca, maybe, I don't know. And Robert Rodriguez does the most brilliant thing ever. I don't know if this is Quentin Tarantino's idea. I feel like this was Robert Rodriguez's idea. Let's the final shot. We're going to pull back on this matte painting and reveal that we're sitting on top of a friggin' pyramid. That this has been going on for hundreds of years, and it sets up the perfect threequel in The Hangman's Daughter, which has its own story. Not to get into the whole story, but it's great, man. It has the return of Michael Parks, who's in the original From Dusk Till Dawn. He comes back, and he plays this guy who's off to like join Pancho Villa's gang, and it's basically. It's almost a reboot. It's a reboot, a prequel, or sorry, it's a remake, it's a prequel, and it's a sequel all at the same time. Danny Trejo returns again. This time, obviously, makes sense because he gets staked in the whatever in the first movie, and then returns whatever. Danny Trejo just always returns in these movies.
Danny Trejo could be in every movie, and I wouldn't question it. It doesn't matter.
Rebecca Gayhart's in it. She's great. Orlando Bloom, I think his name is. He's in it. The vampires are interesting. There's a great little story in there, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a great way to sort of cap off the From Dusk Till Dawn series, although we've never gotten a proper From Dusk Till Dawn sequel, and I would love the
TV show, but that was a different kind.
Yeah, the TV show. I was really sort of bummed out by that TV show. They got too crazy with it.
Yeah,
that's just me.
Well, I'm gonna revisit it, Jeff, because you should. I literally was managing a video store in the aughts the last time I saw that movie.
Bro, I saw a movie in 1998, I think. 97 or 98.
I can't believe that made your 5. Okay.
Fuck yeah, it did, dude. That's
amazing. Okay, I'm not judging.
Yeah.
I just can't believe it made the 5 out of everything available.
We're talking about horror threequels, man. Listen, I got a lot of honorable mentions.
I could be surprised.
Yes, you can. But listen, we're not saying the top best. We're saying our top 5.
Yes, I'm still surprised. You could have tortured me, and I never would have said From Dusk Till Dawn.
I made it, so I made this a little bit more
interesting. It's
interesting.
Good.
So
because I think my list is kind of hacky, so
right. I've made it a little bit more interesting. Yeah. You say your next pick, and then we're going to go to our commercial real quick. So go ahead.
Okay, my next pick I think is a movie that was a flop on release, and I'm so happy to see it's now much beloved by many. And it is Exorcist 3.
Okay. Be very light with this one because I have never seen Exorcist 3.
Oh my God. Have you not seen Exorcist 3, Jeff?
I just watched The Exorcist for the first time in its entirety 2 years ago. Okay?
Well,
I've never been interested in Exorcist stuff. Never.
I know. I think we talked about this. It also has to do with like our upbringing and our background.
Yes. I'm a you.
Right. And I'm an Italian Catholic. I was raised Italian Catholic.
There you go.
So if you don't know, Jeff, Exorcist 2, The Heretic is not well loved.
Yes, this I know.
It is not well loved. I know.
Linda Blair returns.
I actually know people who adore it, and that's fine. But Exorcist 3 is one of those movies that actually sends chills up my spine.
Oh.
Like it's incredible. I can't talk about it much without spoilers. So I think anyone that's watching will be on board because it has such a good following now. Like people have come around to it.
It's had a renaissance, like Halloween 3 did.
George C. Scott. Yeah, it's a great movie. All I can say, Jeff, is there you go. The people are supporting it. Jeff, you gotta. I don't think you need to watch The Heretic. You don't need to watch that.
People have told me I don't need to watch it.
You don't
I'm still going to. I have to.
To do it to be a completionist, but I think
as Michael J. Epstein would say,
all these sequels aren't going to watch themselves.
These sequels are not going to watch themselves. Why doesn't he put that on a t-shirt? He should, you would
because I don't think he has a t-shirt store. Like I could do it, I guess, but
you could do it.
I think here's Jeff. I know that The Exorcist wasn't your cup of tea because of those reasons, but I think The Shears, yeah. But I think if you watch it, it will even surprise you.
I'm sure. Listen, I just want to weigh in. Okay, so for those of you wondering why the hell have I never seen The Exorcist, I've seen bits and pieces on TV. It is just never two things that don't like interest me. Possession stuff, like, and ghost stuff. I don't, it doesn't scare me. I always was the zombie guy. Zombies terrified me. Terrified me. So for me, like that's where I leaned very heavily because I thought, or body horror. I leaned, although one could say that The Exorcist absolutely qualifies as a body horror film.
Yeah, so I would say Exorcist 3 has some of that too.
So there you go.
Although I'm thinking about the stuff in Exorcist 3 that does actually make my like spine tingle, and a lot of it is religious in tone. So I don't know. That might not have any effect. I don't know, man.
I just never, I was like, oh, you've been possessed by a devil. Okay, whatever. Like it just never interests me, man. Never. And so finally, obviously it's considered to be one of the greatest films ever made, let alone greatest horror film ever made. I finally turned it on. I watched it. It was great. It was a good movie.
You can't insult the filmmaking of The Exorcist at all.
Listen, but the story is good. It is great. Things are great for a reason. You know, you can be that hipster D-bag who's like, nah, it's not really that great. It's so overrated, blah, blah, blah. But that's not, look, things are great for a reason. The Beatles are great for a reason. Okay. Sure. Even if you love to hate the Beatles are still great for a reason. Exorcist is great for a reason.
I'm indifferent to the Beatles, but I wouldn't say they're not great. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I get what you're saying.
So there you go.
Yeah, no, I totally trust that you would recognize the genius of The Exorcist as far from a filmmaking standpoint. Right.
Now, if you gave me The Exorcist or The Guardian, I would probably be like, let's get our Guardian on. That's another William Friedkin movie.
I probably go Sorcerer myself, but
I've never seen Sorcerer.
You gotta see Sorcerer, man. Friedkin's one of my favorites of all time. So
Brian says if neither of you have Amityville 3D, I quit. Oh, let's go to some comments.
Have you seen Amityville 3D, Brian?
Oh my God. These talk about movies that need to watch themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's not making my top 5. I'm just sorry.
Dan says, as an atheist, I still really like The Exorcist and The Omen.
Dan, I am a lapsed Catholic who doesn't really talk about any of that stuff anymore, and I still love The Omen. I just watched the entire Omen trilogy.
Oh, I need to do that.
And the remake. So
that is something I need to do.
Omen 3 is not on my list. I will say that. But
Sam Neill, baby.
Oh, but yeah, it's a very interesting movie, but it is not a great movie.
Omen 4 with the girl when she comes back
Omen 2 though, awesome. I loved Omen 2.
I've not seen Omen 2.
You got to see Omen 2. Yeah.
Amy says she was Reagan for Halloween when she was 13.
That's incredible.
That's crazy.
Amy, have you ever seen Repossessed? That's my favorite Exorcist movie.
Right. That's with Linda Blair and
Leslie Nielsen. Yeah.
No, that was great. Good pick, Bob. I will probably, you know what? I'm gearing up everybody to do 31 Days of Halloween. As you know,
do The Exorcist. Finish out the trilogy
for sure. I'm gonna do so.
There's also prequels though, Jeff. Just so you know,
I'm not doing the prequel. The two prequels, the prequel war. Oh my God, that could be
weird
its own
prequel thing.
That could have its own documentary. That whole situation.
Rennie Harlan versus Paul Schrader.
For those of you who are unaware, every year I do 31 Days of Halloween. I watch a minimum of 31 horror movies in 31 days. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And I'm going to be doing a review every single day for every single movie that I watch on this channel. So make sure to tune in. The reviews
every
will be
night
short.
You're going to talk about it every night.
I did it last year. That's
crazy.
Every night last year, I shot, edited, and uploaded a review of whatever I watched that day. And I did it for the whole month of October. It's crazy, a marathon, man. But it's so much fun. It's a journey, dude. It's a really, really fun journey. And
if you ever want company on one of those days, I'll watch the same movie.
I would love that. I would Bob, let's coordinate. I would love to do that. I've already got 2 movies. Smile is going to be my first film this year. It's out in theaters. And I also got tickets to an advanced screening of Piggy, which I've been hearing interesting things about. And, the thing about piggies is sometimes they get sticky. And you know what else gets sticky, Bob? Stickers. I'm going crazy with these basement prices on stickers. No, I'm just kidding.
And the best stickers are the ones from Riot, I think.
Right. Riotfest.com. They have the best stickers. Sharpie Riot, my boy Sharpie Riot, he sponsors this channel. We're powered by riotstickers.com. He printed up this beautiful banner behind me. He pressed up this. You can't see the button that's on the side of my head on my cool Genre Blast hat. But riotstickers.com, look at the vinyl shine on these stickers. He took these stickers and he stuck them up together. I stick these stickers everywhere, man. And let me tell you, rain, shine, snow, sleet. I'm not even using my words properly. Everything works. Everything works. It's great. Riotstickers.com, because Riot stickers are the bomb. And as you know, as we do every time we do a show, we have to play that very, very catchy theme song from the guy from Less Than Jake. So we're going to do that real quick, and we're going to get right back to the list. My number 4 pick. Hold on 1 second. It's coming up right now. If I could just find it, I'll just keep talking because we don't want any dead air on
none at
the
all
channel.
I can't wait for Jeff to not like Exorcist 3. I'm so excited.
Corn.
Posters and promo cards, there's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads, we can print on shirts, we can print on hats, we can print on pants. Cheap prices and high quality, quick turnaround times and free shipping. We also offer free artwork support, great customer service, and so much more. We are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb.
Wait, is it Blair Witch 3? Is that what you're basically telling me right now? The fact that you're turned around in a corner almost makes me think Blair Witch.
That was the plan.
So like,
that's what I was doing.
Oh, is that on your list? The Blair Witch, the third Blair Witch movie?
No. I just thought that would be funny.
Okay.
I was like, I've never like done a gag from like I should just like turn around and like be facing the wall just for no reason.
What if you didn't move for like half an hour? That would be
what
really do I
weird.
do? How long until I sign out?
No, that's just the beginning of our improv folk film.
Oh, right. I forgot.
That's pretty much what would happen. That's an idea. That's an idea. So, all right. So we're up to my number 4. And I have decided that my number 4 is going to be Alien 3.
Then I'm going to have to edit my number 3.
Oh, I knocked Bob out. Yeah, baby.
Damn it.
Fun. This has made the game more spicy because
it does.
You can knock somebody out. It's like this weird sort of game now. Okay. So, and Bob, obviously, if you want, you should weigh in on Alien 3 as well.
I'll let you speak first. I'm deciding what to put in the slot.
So, yeah, I picked Alien 3 because, again, another threequel. It's amazing how the horror 3s are generally hated.
Yeah.
They're generally hated. As we just said, the non-horror 3s are loved. Return of the King, Return of the Jedi, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, these films are friggin' beloved.
Jeff, let's get to the point though. Why Alien 3 is hated? I've always said it is not because of the execution. It's not because of the movie itself. It is hated for one simple fact, and that was the decision to kill 2 characters off screen at the beginning. If that decision was different, Alien 3 would not be hated like it is. I truly believe that.
So here's the thing. Going back to what Bob says about sticking with canon, and the baton was passed to David Fincher, whoever the script writing of Alien 3 is a long, torrid, crazy situation that we were not going to get into, but whoever got the final ball and had made that decision to kill off Newt and Hicks at the beginning of the film, they were handed a baton. They respected the canon, but they chose to basically go in a different direction and alienated alienated a large group of people that just absolutely were, riding high. We all ride high on the ending of Aliens, only to come into the bleak, nihilistic,
the very unique tone of Alien 3.
Alien 3.
It sucks because it's like it's like a few lines in the script which could have been easily changed.
Yeah,
they could have lived, and they could have just been in stasis for the whole movie or something.
Right, you could have actually upped the stake. You could have increased the stakes by having them be alive and having to keep them alive.
Yeah,
or you create pathos, in which that's what Alien 3 deals with, and that's what people refuse to accept. But it's all there. Ripley's pathos for grieving the loss of a child,
right?
And becoming a mother.
It was her mother, right?
No, but I mean, she was a mother the first time, and then she adopted Newt, but she's now forcibly become a mother after losing a child, in that she's going to give birth to an alien queen. So it's interesting how she's mourning the death of a child while once again pregnant with a different type of child that she doesn't want. And it deals with all sorts of stuff. You have great performances. We get Lance Hendrickson comes back as Bishop, and it's just such a killer cameo. It's really sad.
Charles Dance and
Charles
Dutton.
Dance. Oh man,
Charles Dance, one of my favorite actors of all time.
So great.
And Charles Dutton, the two,
both great.
Yeah, like those are two guys that remind me of my childhood.
That's the guy from Lost World too, right? The game hunter.
Not Charles Dance. No,
not Charles Dance. Charles Hutton. Am I thinking of someone else?
Charles Dutton.
Dutton. Am I thinking of a different guy? British guy, right?
No, Charles Dutton from from Rudy, from.
Oh. So who's the guy? Sorry. Okay, who's the guy that plays the game hunter in the Lost World? That guy's
Pete Postlethwaite.
Yeah, that dude is.
At one point,
that's my dude.
Spielberg once said he was the greatest actor on the planet. At one point, he passed away.
Reason.
He passed away like 15 years ago.
R.I.P.
But that's why he is in. That's why he is in the Lost World, because Spielberg revered him so much as an actor.
He's so great. He makes the Lost World.
Oh
as
yeah,
great as it is. Like he's the best. He's in Romeo and Juliet. Plays the monk, the guy. He's
a great actor. He's
a great actor.
Yeah.
And an Alien 3, one thing when I was younger, I used to hate Alien 3 because it was like, well, there's only one alien. They had they
should have been three. It should have been
Why are there more aliens? Oh, just one alien again. That's stupid. We already know
it is. It is really Alien 3, small 3, right? It's
right. It's Alien cubed. Right. But when you go older and you start to appreciate it, it matures and you appreciate it for what it is. And just like the game that they have to play with the dragon, they call it a dragon, which is just fun.
It's awesome. Yeah.
And they're playing this game in the maze of trying to trap the creature. And it just goes to show, it's like a great reset because James Cameron's like, okay, more guns, more aliens. And then David Fincher's like, okay, less aliens, no guns. And he just it's like he dials it back. And then, of course, Alien Resurrection dials it way back, even higher than Aliens does in many ways. And it's awesome for all those reasons, because I love me some Aliens Resurrection. That's another
Aliens Resurrection is an extremely fun movie. I've always said that.
Love it.
I kind of I like every Aliens movie in different
I do.
ways.
The quadrilogy is church for me. I love it.
Yeah.
So Alien 3 is my and the last thing I'll say is that and then we get this awesome turn that Bishop comes back, and it turns out Bishop is actually Wayland. That was so cool, man. What a
cool
reveal.
Also, just Alien 3 is sort of it took everything after Aliens. It took everything back to the claustrophobia, the inner
Sure.
space and terror. It like there's something about Alien 3 that makes me actually feel like, claustrophobic and sick. Everything is grimy, and
It's
there's
very dirty.
it's almost like a movie it's like a movie not from America. It's got a bleakness that we didn't see.
European. It has a European vibe.
Yes, it's got a bleakness that we don't see in Hollywood movies often, if ever.
Look at Aliens. Look at Aliens and look at Alien 3, and you can just see
so
the
different.
contrast is insane. What's so funny is then you look at Avatar and you almost could say, wow, it almost feels like these space frontier humans, it almost feels like the same like Marines, which is cool.
James Cameron has a
Space
oeuvre.
Marines.
He has an oeuvre, right?
Yeah.
I truly love Alien 3. I was gonna say that I think it's the assembly cut. Whatever they went over it with a fine-tooth comb, I think that is honestly the best cut of
the
it.
restoration.
The restoration, even though it saddens me Fincher won't ever like even remotely mention it again.
There's a plot point. I forgot what it was. There's some plot point that they took out in the theatrical cut that was like egregious, and I don't remember what it was. It was something about like they released the thing, like they released the alien, but there's some egregious plot point that is restored in the assembly cut that elevates the assembly cut. And I can't remember what it was.
Also, I was going to say I wanted to say that this is a movie, since the way that me and you know each other is through film festivals. And this is a movie that I bonded with one of your other guests, Steven Stahl, the creator of the Bizarreland Film Festival. He is like the biggest Alien 3 fan there is.
Is he really? I did not know that.
And so that's one of the first things me and him ever like connected on was Alien 3. So there are fans out there, and it's had a resurgence of love, but I think to some degree
it had a renaissance. Exorcist 3, Alien 3, and Halloween 3 have all had.
That's why the Oscars should give out Oscars 30 years later. It should always have a 30 years later category.
I really like that idea.
It really needs to have one because truly great movies find their place.
So that was my number 4. And now it is your turn to do
number 3. My number 3 was Alien 3, but I have to replace it. And the decision is excruciating. Here's the thing this is
so fun. I love this.
Look,
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to, because you talked about it recently, because you're in your Alien 3 discussion, and I'm going to say, you can challenge me, Jeff. I'll change this answer. Because I'm a fan of this movie, even though it's also hated or disliked. But I don't know if it counts as horror. But Jurassic Park 3. Does that count as horror?
Bob.
Does that count as horror?
Bob, I can't count that.
You don't count as horror? Okay.
I'm sorry, Bob.
Does Jurassic Park not count as horror?
It's action adventure, man. I don't.
Okay.
It's not. I wouldn't even call it. I wouldn't even call them monster movies.
We don't. They're monster movies. I disagree there.
They are. They are categorically monster movies, but I don't consider them monster movies. Let me ask you this, Bob.
I'll give you the not horror. Okay, I'll give you the not horror.
Would you put Jurassic Park 3 on a horror shelf in a video store?
No.
So that's why I would say doesn't make
count.
The cut.
All right.
In my opinion, listen, I'm not going to do that to you. If you want to count Jurassic Park 3, I don't think it's
dude. I was like iffy on if Jurassic Park, a franchise, the first 3 at least, counted as horror. I was like, there's horror in them without
Jurassic
a doubt.
Park is horrific, but Jurassic Park is firmly rooted in action adventure family more than it is sci-fi monster horror, which it has tinges of. But for some reason, Jurassic Park transcends these elements that make
it's the Spielberg
above.
Of it all.
It is the Spielberg,
and that is a Joe Johnston movie who's like kind of Spielberg
light,
like his Spielberg apprentice like level.
Yeah, he's a Spielberger.
Okay,
in the same way that Zemeckis is,
right, or Dante or something.
Right. Sorry,
that's fine. I was iffy on it myself. Because the problem with my honorables is a lot of them I just.
I mean, would
like
you
them.
put Gremlins? Could you put Gremlins in a horror thing? I don't think so either.
1, yes. 2, no.
Mm,
No, definitely.
know,
1 is a
man.
horror movie. It counts. Even though it has comedy, it counts. Horror comedy counts as horror.
No one dies.
Somebody dies in Gremlins.
Who dies in Gremlins?
The old lady. She gets thrown out of a window. She's dead.
Oh, yeah.
And it's implied that a lot of other people die, but
it's been decades since I've seen Gremlins. I really should revisit it.
dude, I've seen it every year for like 40 years. Are you
Holy
kidding?
shit, Bob.
What are you doing?
This is why I love Bob. Like, you don't understand. Like, this is what makes Bob so precious to me.
Because I've
like,
seen movies a lot.
Just that you like your compulsivity to rewatch movies over and over.
Dude,
I do it too. I
people that
rewatch
don't
movies.
rewatch movies, they don't make sense to me. Film fans,
Bob,
that love film.
Bob,
that
there's
don't
only so many there's only so much time to watch all the movies that I'm never going to get to see.
Right,
and that's why
I respect that you are a father and you are in charge of human beings' lives. You're married.
Yeah,
I respect all these things. These take away from movie watching times.
It sure does. 31 Days of Halloween has gotten harder and harder every fucking year.
As a non-married, non-children guy, I can't find the time sometimes to watch movies. So I'm like, how the hell do you do it? I have no
late
idea.
At night. I do it late. And the thing too is they've gotten old enough. It used to be like my son was like 1 and I could watch like Takashi Miike's Yakuza
right, because he wouldn't know what he's looking
Apocalypse.
at. Right.
Yeah, and like a guy gets decapitated and like he goes, and I'm like, yeah, isn't that great?
You don't know you're accidentally raising Dexter or something.
Yeah, like
you're exposing to all this stuff.
Like now I can't. Like now we watched real quick. We watched Primal. You watching Primal?
No, I don't watch Primal.
Okay, there's a scene in Primal that's it's a cartoon. So I let my son watch it, even though it's ultra violent.
It's awesome.
Ultra violent.
Sorry, I thought you meant some movie named Primal.
Well, Primal with Nick Cage too, but no, the show.
The show, yes, I've totally seen it.
It's
just great.
I mean, it's a masterpiece.
It's great. It's incredible.
I don't know if this was the right parental decision, but I let my son watch Primal with me because I just thought we would bond over it, and he loved it. We must have watched Rage of the Ape Men about 1 million times, which is one of the most gory things I've ever seen. But it's cartoons.
But it's animated, so it's like, it
okay,
matter.
But Bob, until we watched the episode The Crimson Mist in season 2.
I don't remember the names, but
okay, did you watch season 2?
Yeah, I watched all of it.
Okay. So when they go to the village and slaughter everybody.
Oh, yeah. It's not for kids.
Yeah. So I didn't know that was going to happen to the little boy. And my son turned to me with this look of horror and shock on his face. Tears well up in his eyes. And he goes, "Shame on you for showing this to me." And I'm like, Jordan, he's like, no, he's like, Fang is a bad man. I'm like, thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, well, good. Like he's like having like a visceral reaction to
people dying. He has empathy,
like this is good. This is good.
Right.
Showing.
He's also aligning with the right. Yeah, he's aligning with the right side of the emotion,
as opposed to his dad, who's like, "Hey, watch this."
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just sitting there, like,
he's not going like,
no, like literally
human suffering.
No, I'm like literally like thinking that I'm like literally the worst dad ever. Like, just show that. But what was amazing was just the visceral reaction to this shocking. My son, who's like, children don't die. So my son, who's like trying to process. Well, but here's what's interesting. Actually, I brought that up in the conversation we were having, because what I did was I paused it and then we sat and we had a very long conversation about what he saw. We processed it together. Mm-hmm. We talked about it and we talked about history, what happens to children in history and how history is actually rather grim, yada, yada, yada. Conversations that you really don't want to have with a 7-year-old, but you do anyway. And I brought that up. I said, Anakin, your favorite character, what he did to the younglings. And he was like, no, it's not the same. And so what really hurt Jordan, what really hurt my son was that he watched his hero, Fang, do this thing that he didn't think heroes did. And it was just this incredible moment of like almost like lost innocence,
Right.
Rite of passage into kinder trauma that we all get when we watch something we're not supposed to see. And we had a really good, like, heart-to-heart conversation. He made me remove it from the queue. We're not allowed to watch. I had to finish the show without him. He wouldn't watch it anymore.
He learned the difference. He learned the difference between a hero and a protagonist that day.
It's funny, Bob. I tried to explain to him the difference between a hero and a protagonist as well. And just that it was an accident. He didn't mean to do it. And he goes, he shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have done it. He was violent. And I'm going, Jordan, how many dinosaurs did we see get ripped apart in the first season? He goes, it's different. It wasn't a little boy. And I go, wow. I was so proud of him. I was proud.
Well, yeah, because he's feeling that. That's something that's good. You want him to feel.
It was
something.
A litmus test of his character. So
you want him to feel that.
I digress. I don't know why we got
I don't know how we got there. I was crazy. I was the type of kid. I know what I'm gonna put in the space, but I was gonna say I'm the type of kid when I was young and I saw someone eating alone at a restaurant, like I'm with my parents and I saw someone eating alone, I would start crying. And my parents would be like,
it was a bad thing.
Well, my parents would be like, why are you crying? I was like, that person is so lonely that I can't take it. Like I couldn't. And they're like, actually, people can eat alone without being depressed.
Yeah, it's like,
but like, I understand that as a kid, it's good when a kid shows that type of emotion, Okay. So I think I'm going to put a movie here just because I want to talk about it. Not because it's
Jurassic Park. And I said, no. Oh yeah.
Right.
Okay, now I remember how
I'm going to put I'm going to throw you a curveball because I do love this movie and it is my favorite of the franchise. I could put another one in that I probably love more, but I think it's a much more hack answer. So I'm going to use this. The Purge election year. The third movie in the Purge series.
I respect that. Okay, here's why I respect that. I respect it because it's not something I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
The Purge series is fine.
That's the only one I think is great, in my opinion, because it has shades of the John Carpenter fuck you to the upper classes and the elite and the authority. And it's kind of got a sense of humor to it. It's really over the top.
They all kind of blend in together to me, the Purge
That's
movies.
The one to me that doesn't. I agree.
That's
the rest
the one where there's the election can stop the Purge from happening, right?
Yeah, that's the one with the cult of alt-right conservatives that like worship the Purge.
Listen, that mythology, like that, like, first of all, it's terrifying. It hits close to home, and it's a very interesting again, bring up the word antagonist. It's a very interesting, like threat or whatever you want to call it. I just always feel like the Purge movies don't. I feel like they don't. You know what it is? I almost feel like we need to see things from the POV of the villain, not align with their perspective. I
don't know if you're remembering this movie that well, but okay, look, let me say this: I don't like the Purge franchise that much. I don't. Right. I think the first movie's terrible. The first movie didn't do anything with the premise that anyone wanted. It's a home invasion movie.
Yeah.
It's weak. The second movie is at least sort of in the streets and an action movie. The third movie is where I view it actually like, to me, that's the first. I wish that was the first movie. Like it kind of.
Wait a minute. Yeah, they're dressed like the founding fathers at the end, and they're on the and everybody's about to be executed. I remember that one.
Yes, I remember I walked out of the theater and I was like somebody. Well, whatever. I mean, it's old enough. I walked out of the theater and I was like, whoever directed and wrote this was aiming for Carpenter. I'm not saying it's anywhere near Carpenter, you know what I mean? But like the fact that I can appreciate it, I really love that movie. I thought it was the most interesting of all of them. And it's just so blunt. I love a good blunt fuck you to authority. So I really like that movie. The rest of them, I could give her, I don't really like them that much. But that is a 3, and I'm putting it in the place of Alien 3. So I have other options, but I feel like you're going to say one. Fair enough. So
fair enough.
So yeah, the Purge election year. I'm going with it.
There's 2 movies I suspect. I know one that for sure is on your list, and one of us is going to hit the landmine. I'm not sure which one of us is going to.
I wonder what you mean. We'll see.
I don't know. I have a feeling.
The last two that I have to say are so obvious it's painful.
Yeah,
that's the thing I hate about these lists is when you have to be obvious, but it's the truth. It's like,
yeah,
what are the top 5 you love? And it's like, oh, they're so obvious. It pains me how obvious they are. That's why I said Purge, because I was like, Jeff will never say the Purge, so I'll say it.
So for my number 3, which really could be swappable with 2, as I tried to quickly rank these to
because wait, Alien 3 was your number 4, right?
Yeah, I wanted to accommodate Bob's,
5, yeah, the
Bob's
numbering system.
No, it's reasonable. It's in a reasonable accommodation, and I wanted to respect his desire to order things. So the next 2 are actually kind of interchangeable, and I'm just going with one over the other.
Sure.
And it is Army of Darkness.
God damn it, man!
I knew we were gonna have Army of Darkness.
Have this problem, and you know what? My number 2 is gonna be your number 1 now. I realize it.
You motherfucker! No,
you know what it is.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Don't do it, Bob.
We've ruined everything.
You son of a bitch! I know he knows what it's gonna be. God damn it, Bob!
I mean, it's just like, what can he do? What can we do? What can we do?
What can you do? So, Army of Darkness, man. Dude, I mean, what is there not to say about this?
There's nothing left to say.
It's just
here's the thing, Jeff. You should talk first. It was your choice. It's your first. I'll talk after you. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. So Army of Darkness, you have a film, first of all, that does something.
Now I got to replace my number 1, you son of a bitch.
Well, it does something that I wish my number 1 did.
Yeah.
And, it just goes on its own title. It doesn't hinder on Evil Dead 3. It's its own animal. So in a way, Army of Darkness is not only the 3rd Evil Dead film, but it's also the first Army of Darkness film. And in another way, I know this is going to sound really crazy, Army of Darkness is the film that started it all for, say, the Evil Dead, the Ash versus Evil Dead franchise, or series on Starz.
It's like you said, it's the
it's a pivot point.
It's where Ash became the pop culture icon,
right? And again, much like Sidney Prescott, the star, the vehicle of this, normally it's Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, the Leprechaun, Chucky, in 2 scenarios with Scream and Evil Dead, it's the protagonist who is the monster icon or the slayer of monsters. In this case, it's Ash. And they, turned everything on its head. And really, everything that can be said right up. Just look at the poster, man. Look at the beautiful poster art with Ash, trapped in time, low on gas, surrounded by evil.
Well, surrounded by evil and low on gas.
Yeah, and I literally say that every time I'm low on gas in the car, driving my daughter to pre-K. I'll say that to myself. I'll say, trapped in time, surrounded by gas. Trapped in time, surrounded by evil, low on gas. And I just, and what's interesting too is the tone shift from Evil Dead, which is just talk about, here's a film that's comedic, but is done with such serious conviction. Everything that they do in Evil Dead is meant to be serious, even though it's not, even though it is comedy. These guys are just as these guys are primarily influenced by the Three Stooges. So the original Evil Dead, despite being the ultimate experience in grueling horror, terror, whatever,
right,
is actually subversively, it's a Three Stooges film. And then as they got more clout and more success, they were able to really wear that influence on their sleeve more and more. And, for anybody who's had the treat of getting to watch Crime Wave, which is the Coen brothers. I love it too. I've seen it. I have it on Blu-ray and I watched it twice back to back, once with the commentary and once without. And what's so great about Crime Wave is it's literally all of the punk rock tenacity of the Evil Dead filmmaking spirit, but applied to something that's not Evil Dead. And it's like, I wish we got 10 movies in the 80s that were just one after another with that same kinetic style. And obviously that flows right into Evil Dead 2, which takes itself a little less seriously and starts going really cuckoo, and then goes full on slapstick with Army Darkness, which is actually my exposure to the Evil Dead. It was the first one I saw. I saw that poster, RKO video, 1992. I remember being a small child, seeing that poster and just like marveling at it, not understanding what it was, then catching it on late night TV and sort of getting it, and then watching the movies backwards. Then I watched Evil Dead 2, which became my spirit animal, followed by the Evil Dead. And,
if I could say that, like I said to you earlier, my number one, which was, now my list is all messed up. My list is destroyed by everyone watching. My list is destroyed now.
That's the goal now of these top
it's
5
just totally
shows.
destroyed.
Torpedo the other
completely.
list.
It's feasible that if I ran through all the number 3s that I love, that Army of Darkness would come out on top regardless of horror or not.
Ooh.
But let me say this. Back in the 90s, my friend gave me both Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness on VHS. I watched them both. Evil Dead 2 back then. Listen, hold on. Back then, I was lukewarm on Evil Dead 2. Okay?
Wow.
It was the 90s. I was young. Okay? I didn't know what I was watching. But when I saw Army of Darkness, instantly fell in love. I was like, whatever this is, whatever the hell this is, I absolutely love it. Now, today I would tell you, I do think Evil Dead 2 is obviously the masterpiece. I don't think anyone's arguing that. No one is. Do I prefer Army of Darkness? Yes. But I'm that guy, you know? I'm the guy that prefers the funny to the horror. You know what I mean? Could I watch Evil Dead 2 constantly? Absolutely. It's great. It's wonderful. It's perfect. But yeah, when I first saw Army of Darkness and I realized it was Three Stooges, I couldn't. How could I not? I'm looking at. I have 2 screens. The background on my screen right now is the Three Stooges. They're like, you know, Three Stooges is so
too,
huge.
bro. I grew
in
up
my
on
life. You watch
Same.
watch any of my stuff, there is Three Stooges sound effects. There's Three Stooges gags that I try to put in every now and then. Like, they're so huge to me, and that becomes Sam Raimi gags now, right?
Right.
It's not just that I love Army of Darkness; it's that it's
Shemping.
Army of Darkness is influential to who I am as a person and as a creative. Like, it's that, like, and it's such a silly, it's such a silly surface movie. You know what I mean? It's not.
What's funny is it almost is actually an action adventure movie more than it is a horror movie.
Like, the fact, really, it's arguably shouldn't even be on this list, but because of its association with the other of its franchise, it counts. It does count. It's in the horror section. It is in the horror section,
but it does not deserve to be a hard R that it is.
It is not.
Deserves
it is not
to
a
be
horror.
I don't consider it
PG-13. There's nothing about Army of Darkness that I find scary whatsoever.
It's not,
and I'm so fine with that. It doesn't matter.
Again, another great example of a movie that ends on a light note. If you're not watching the director's cut, that is.
I love both endings. Yeah,
I love both endings, but it's just like it just sort of, you know, the Hail to the King is the perfect cherry on the top of the sundae, and also really gives us a glimpse at Bruce Campbell, like what he could have been in the 90s. He came up in the 80s, and in the 90s, in an alternate universe, he did get to star as Dr. Peter Elliott in Congo and became the horror version of Indiana Jones.
Or he could have been Shooter McGavin.
Was he up for that role?
Yeah, famously.
I did not know that.
He was almost. I honestly think.
Shut up.
I honestly don't know if it would have been better, because Christopher McDonald is pretty great as Shooter McGavin, but that was one of the roles famously.
That would not
almost
have made his career.
It wouldn't have made it his career, but he would be Shooter McGavin and Ash at the same time.
Yeah, fair enough. But okay, novelty wise, that's great. But I'm talking about like what would have made him a friggin' Brendan Fraser, like in The Mummy type star. Congo, man. Congo. Here's the thing.
I know you just did a show on it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little video.
I'm sorry.
You should check it out, because you'd appreciate it in the sense that
I love Congo, even though it's a fucking mess.
I freaking I fucking love Congo, dude. Like talk
Congo
about
rules.
horror adjacent. Number one, number two. Here you have
My sesame cake.
90s. You have 90s movie executives who've got the biggest hard on for anything that's Michael Crichton. And they're like, what's our next Jurassic Park? And they're like, oh, killer monkeys with diamond lasers. That's a great idea. Okay, let's throw some Ernie Hudson in there, some Tim Curry. Like, I mean, what a stew, right? What a stew. And then they're auditioning people. Fucking Bruce Campbell is Dr. Peter Elliott, the main frigging guy. Bruce Campbell with a talking monkey at his side, trying to bring, and then of course getting a hold of the diamond laser and just cutting off monkey hands. Like that to me would have established him as this horror centric Indiana Jones.
We should have gotten. I wish we got more Congos. I wish there was 3 Congos.
Oh God, I would love that. I would so love that. Listen, I'm grateful for what we got, and again, Ernie Hudson is so spectacular in that great film. I can't say enough good things. But point being, Army of Darkness shows us what Bruce Campbell,
could have been at the age I'm at, and when Army of Darkness hit in my life. It's one of those movies that for a while, for a few years, it became, I was young. It became my personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everything. I was Army of Darkness. I had like 4 Army of Darkness posters literally hanging in my room. Like that's how much I loved that movie. I put it on whenever I'm feeling down, or I just need a break, or I just want to hear it. I listen to the score in my car. It's everything,
I just want to clarify. Brian says Raimi called his gag shemps. So here's the thing.
Yes.
I don't know if he actually called them shemps, or what he was doing was he was shemping, which was where he would take someone famously when the Three Stooges had Shemp to replace Curly. They were in the middle of shooting 5 or 6 shorts at the same time. Shemp died. They needed to replace Shemp with a
fake Shemps.
A fake Shemp in order to complete the shorts. Raimi and Tappert and Campbell, they all knew this. So when they're making the Evil Dead and they have a skeleton crew, they start crediting people as
skeleton
fake
crew,
Shemps. No pun intended. Because they'd have to have someone slipping in as this ghoul or that ghoul or whatever. And that was shemping, and that became, and I've done a lot of, I use shemps in my work, and I had to shemp many a time when I didn't have the actor. I just put on the clothes and, put my hand in the scene or whatever. Everybody does that when they're making movies and whatnot. It's like a thing, but I love the idea that it's shemping, or that it's shemps. So I'm not sure that the gag was called shemps. And again, I don't want, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right. It's the people,
but it's the idea of using a fake shemp in that, we had to.
Yeah. If you read Chins Could Kill, Bruce Campbell's book, he talks about this pretty at length.
I really should read it. I have the Evil Dead companion book, which is really great.
I have that too. But I've read
about filmmaking.
Bruce Campbell talks about it pretty exclusively in his books too. So
I got to pick that up for sure. But yeah, Army of Darkness, just like they don't get better than that when it comes to.
It's funny because you show it to people now. If somebody's coming to it, like let's say you show it to like a late 30s, late or early 40s type person now, and they're like, dude, the guy barely says anything, and the movie is generally extremely silly, and kind of it's not a ton happens. You know what I mean? Like it's like if you show it to someone now, and I'm like, I know, but that's what I love about it, the absolute simplicity of it.
Yeah,
and the fact that somebody gave Raimi back then money to do like this giant siege on a castle and stuff, like the fact that they even got that opportunity, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Its alternative title is known as The Medieval Dead, which I also really like.
It's a really good title. Yeah,
that's a good title.
It's arguably way better. But
and one last thing to say, Brian also makes mention. He says, "Do you consider Evil Dead 2 as a sequel to the first or a weird remake?" And they've said they said it's both. Yeah. However, recently on Twitter, Bob, this seemed to be a hill that Bob was willing to die on, in the sense that he refused to acknowledge that The Evil Dead is self-contained, a completely self-contained film, while I agreed with whoever the random stranger was, who said that Evil Dead is a completely self-contained film. At the end, the evil does get Ash, and of course, when they made a sequel, they picked up where the first one left off, as Bob said, about, honoring the canon, except in this case, they didn't have the rights, so
And
they
here's
had
the
to
thing is,
remake the movie.
Did Sam Raimi make another movie that generally has the same canon? Yes.
Yeah, but when you look at just the first movie alone by itself,
yeah, it can stay, like many first
self-contained.
movies, it can stand on its own.
Right. So
But
that's
it doesn't. But it
so
doesn't
that's what
anymore.
self-contained. But that's what self-contained means. It's a self-contained movie.
I don't
no
even
matter
know
what.
why it matters.
I don't either. But
It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. But it
doesn't.
does. It does. But it doesn't.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Because we're making.
That was your
time.
number what? What was that?
That was my number 3. So now you're on your number 2.
All right, so I rewrote the last 2 because of Jeff.
I am cringing. I'm cringing over what this
butt
is
sexing up my whole list.
Butt sex.
I mean, you just did, dude. You totally butt sexed it up, man.
This was fun.
Obviously.
This was fun. We're gonna do this again where we can knock each other out.
Literally, over half of my list has been changed due to Jeff.
It just makes it fun.
But you know what? It's not over yet because you're definitely gonna have one of these 2 on.
Yeah,
there.
I know which one you're gonna do.
Because how can it not be on there? How can it not be on there?
I'm literally gonna cry. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm pretty sure you won't have this because we don't feel the same about these movies. So I'm happy about that.
Okay.
And I added this from my honorable mentions list as my number 2.
Yeah.
Because of all the problems that I've had thus far with these rules. I think this is a really hack answer. And I think if you said to most people horror threequels that you love, this movie is absolutely 100% on it for most people. And that is Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Duh. I mean, it's just such an obvious answer. It is beloved.
It's a bit of a hack answer. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it wasn't on there before. Okay?
I know. You were forced.
I was forced. My hand was forced.
It's a very popular threequel that everybody is in love with,
and I do love it.
Great and perfect.
I do love it.
It's good. I like it too.
Yeah, I love it. It was between that or a few other ones. I just went with that because I feel like that's.
I still think New Nightmare is a better movie than 3.
That's not the point.
I know.
That's not what we're talking about.
I'm just saying.
Also, we don't agree on this franchise. We've talked about this on this channel, I believe.
Yes.
But I do love Dream Warriors. Obviously, it is 80s. I mean, it's one of those horror movies from the 80s that just feels like absolute. You feel like you're transported back to the decade. You know what I mean? Sure. It smells like the 80s. It tastes like the 80s. It is the 80s. It's got the Dawkins song.
Yeah, it does.
It's got a great setup and it's got a great cast, and I do love it. It wouldn't have normally made my list, but it does now, thanks to Jeff.
It's a great example of a movie that brings back the OG cast.
Yes.
I believe
while adding new lore.
Right, adds new lore. And John Saxon dies at the end of that one, right? His character dies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's a really good 3. Like
it is.
As far as like how 3s come and go,
it's
one that really feels connected to the first 2.
That's when we find out he's the son of 1,000.
Also, it's coming off. I actually really like Nightmare 2, but it's coming off of like 2 was not back then not really beloved because it kind of separated itself from 1, and so 3 brought
Gallagher is so good in it.
Oh, I love 2, but
yeah.
But 3 brought it back. 3 brought it back.
Sure.
And I think because of the success of 3, it kept going to where it did today. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So yeah, it's a really beloved movie. I love it, but it does feel like the most obvious answer anyone would give, except for my number 1, which I know you have on there. You have it. It's there.
I'm shuddering.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you know what kills me too is that I could make my number 1 my number 2, but we both know that would be. I love that we're not saying that would be dishonorable.
We're not talking about the same movie. Do you understand how funny that's going to be?
That's going to be really funny, but it would be so.
We are talking about the same.
It'd be so dishonorable for me to do that just because I know that, and then like knock you out again. But I'm not going to do it. I won't do that to you, Bob.
Okay.
However, I'm dreading. I don't know why. It's like, it's so inconsequential, but for some reason
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but it makes it fun. It makes
everyone
it funny.
watching is like, just say the damn movies.
No. Okay. So here's my number two pick. My number two. This is not only one of my favorite threequels, but it's one of the best goddamn threequels, pound for pound, one of the best goddamn threequels out there. I mean, it is just, it's great, man. It's always been great. It's freaking gory. It's bleak. It has substance. And frankly, the best scenes, I recently revisited this, something I used to watch religiously as a child. I recently revisited this movie and I was like, oh my God, the best scenes don't even involve gore. It's the tension. It's the tension in the thing. Rue Morg, shout out to Rue. Rue, we talked about Scream 3 at the beginning. It's been disqualified, my friend. So it's not.
I mentioned it to Jeff before we did the show, and he said,
yeah,
no, we cannot say it.
It's been, you have to go back to the beginning. We did talk about it. We honored Scream 3. No, the film I am thinking about, I know it's this filmmaker's personal favorite of his films. And I know that it gets a lot of hate and a lot of love. It's also a movie from my birth year. And
what year were you born?
85. And Bob's trying to guess what this movie is.
I'm trying to think what it could be. I know what your number one is, but
it's great, and it marries a bunch of stuff together. It's a very contained movie. I wish the scope was bigger, and what happened to the poor director was his budget was cut in half. He had a much bigger scope for the film. He got cut in half, and he had to sort of scale everything back. But I think he scaled everything back in a really great way and gave us a film that led to the darkest day that the world has ever known. And that movie is Day of the Dead by George Romero.
We were wrong.
What?
Day of the Dead's now. That's my number one now. So what the fuck? Jesus Christ.
Yes! Yes, I win!
My entire list is destroyed,
I fucking win!
My entire list is destroyed,
bro.
Dude.
I swear to God, I left my number one intact as number one to honor the movie that I thought you were going to take me out with, and you
didn't
totally
even
misread that. You totally misread
I totally misread it.
Wow,
That's
I am
insane.
shocked.
I cannot. I think I know what it is now, though. I think I know what your number one is.
I bet you know what it is, but Day of the Dead, baby, is my number two.
Son of a my list is destroyed, dude.
I win.
It's destroyed.
I win. Yeah, so Day of the Dead, man. We're both obviously going to talk. So if you did, how did you not know what I was talking about? I was so blatantly...
honestly, Jeff. When I sat down to do this list, the first thing in my mind was number one on Jeff's list is Day of the Dead.
Bob, you don't know me as well as you thought you did.
Okay, so then your number one could be one of two things. I apparently don't know you that well. Okay, Day of the Dead was number two. It's not like I don't know you that well.
Yeah, well, actually, Day of the Dead could have been number three, but I chose Army of Darkness.
Right, I was close. Okay, I was fucking close. I can't believe my list is so destroyed. It's ridiculous.
But amazing. Day of the Dead, look, Day of the Dead is fucking brilliant. And yes, it's got these moments of extreme gore. It has overtures of Frankenstein. It's like George Romero's done zombies twice now. He gave us one of the greatest film, in my opinion, my favorite film of all time. One of my favorite films of all time, the original Night of the Living Dead. He gave us this masterpiece of a film, and I can't even talk about because I'll just never stop talking about it. And then he's like, "How can I do this different a second time? What if it's a mall? What if they're trapped in a mall and then people lay siege to the mall?" And always trying to find a way to weave social commentary and these big ideas into what are essentially B-movie concepts. And it's like, how does he do it? How do I do it a third time? Well, this time I'm going to weave in overtures of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster between Dr. Logan Frankenstein and Bub, and more importantly, scientists and the industrial military complex. And you have these two competing groups in an underground bunker trying who can't work together. They are the last bastion of civilization, where zombies outnumber humans 400,000 to 1 at this point by Dr. Logan's calculations. And they can't make contact with Washington anymore, and they're running out of supplies, and it's such a bleak, grim situation. And then you have, in my opinion, one of George Romero's finest scenes, and it doesn't involve a single zombie, and it is the scene where they're in the giant mess hall, and the scientists are eating with the military guys. Captain Rhodes, played by Joseph, I think Palladio is his name, Palladio, whatever.
I'd have to look that up.
He's also briefly in Dawn of the Dead, and was the original Seth Gecko in From Dusk Till Dawn, when it was still going to be a Robert Kurtzman vehicle before Quentin Tarantino took it over. And basically you have this standoff between Sarah, who's a scientist, and Captain Rhodes. And he basically tells her that if she doesn't sit down, he's going to shoot her where she stands. And there is so much weaved into that scene, so many layers of onion that are there. And it's so scathingly contemporary to what's happening now. George Romero was a revolutionary genius, man. He was way ahead of his time. If this came out today, surfing on the hype of The Walking Dead, people would be mind melted over the brilliance of Day of the Dead. And I'll turn it over to Bob.
I mean, you said everything, but I mean, when it comes down to it, like, if somebody asked me, let's say somebody came to me and like, Bob, you like movies, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm one of those guys. Tell me like the bleakest movies you can think about that I could watch. It's funny that we talked about the two top ones in my head in this list of ours, because I would easily say Day of the Dead and Alien 3. And Day of the Dead, there's something about Day of the Dead that feels literally depressing in a way that is artistic. Like, it is so sad.
It's the end of human. It's the end of humanity. It's the end of humanity.
It's the slow death,
right,
of humankind, and the waiting it out to watch it die.
And they don't know. They don't know that they're the end. It's
the equivalent of watching someone you love die in a hospital bed slowly over a week. It's like, it's excruciating at every level, but it's also like weirdly beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, watch, and you know what I'm saying, right? Like, I'm not saying death.
Well, the monologue,
but like watching the end of someone's life, like it's dark, but there's also something like, from a aerial perspective, beautiful about how we come, we are, and we leave. You know what I mean? And like Day of the Dead is such an end cap to that trilogy. And it's such a meditation on death, of not just the deaths that happen in the movie, but the death of us. And I don't know.
Humans are literally underground at this point. Like,
yeah,
metaphorically speaking, we're now
couldn't
buried.
Push us down anymore. But
yeah,
we're metaphorically
buried.
And actually physically push us down.
Like we're living in a grave already, and
we're already buried. It's done.
Right. And we're already dead, and we just don't know it yet.
We're suffocating to death. Yeah.
And I mean, they literally, there's one woman and how many men? There's not enough. You can't literally, they don't know if there's anybody else alive. You can't restart the human race. It's the end game. And the other thing too is, there's this sort of like happy sort of like epilogue of them on the sandy beach on the island. And they're just like starting, she started a new calendar, but in a way it's kind of almost like, it's like, here's human beings relegated back to nature. Like their place, it's like it's kind of like the end cap to what's his fucking name in the movie, the Jamaican guy, but I forget his name in the movie. It kills me. Says, Rhodes, you can't do it, Rhodes. I won't fly. You can't make me fly, names, Rhodes. So. I forget his name in the John. I think it's John, and he's the helicopter pilot, and he has this whole monologue about trying to figure out like, why this happened. And they're talking about like all the stuff that they're buried with down in the limestone cave. And then like, it's interesting how like they escape and they wind up on this island, but like they're relegated back to their place in the natural world. We're just like people on an island, just enjoying like the earth. and that's it.
Well, it's like it's back to primitive, right? Back to primal times. Right?
Essentially, and it just what's his face runs out. The Irish dude, he runs out of his booze, and they're just fishing on the beach, and that's it. That's the last glimpse of humanity enjoying the sunset on the Day of the Dead. Boom.
And let's also be clear too. A lot of these movies, this fits in with the scheme which we've talked about, which upon release, not the most popular movie.
Yeah.
Not the most beloved movie. But I feel like
hit.
Dawn will always be the crown jewel for popularity and everything, as it should be. But I feel like
what about Night though? I feel like Night is its own animal,
I mean, I love Night too, but I feel like in the passing years, especially the last 20, that Day has become that. Day's the cool one to like. Or the cool one to love. I feel like I see so much more Day and Bub and stuff when it comes to horror fans and everything. I see so much more love for it, and I wonder if that's just the time passing and people realizing it's a great movie, or the fact that in many ways Day feels more relevant to how we feel in the world now than the other two movies do.
Right. Dawn leaves us with hope.
There's hope in Dawn, right?
There's hope at the end.
It's a dark movie, but there is hope.
Night is probably the bleakest of them all for so many reasons. I mean,
I guess Night, I agree with you, but also like the fact that I know where it goes makes, by the makeshift fact that I know of the franchise, there's hope even then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not the fault of the movie, it's the fault of George Romero continuing the story. So it's not that, but Day is where it feels like
the end.
Day feels like
race.
I watched
that's
it. Ever since 2020, I've maybe watched Day twice a year.
Oh wow!
So like
you've seen it a lot.
Yeah, man. I mean, like sometimes it's just putting it on the background,
right?
But I'll watch it again this year too. It's just that kind of movie, and I tell you, it's like in a weird way in 2020 when my hope level was at its lowest. There was something strangely comforting watching something that was even bleaker than I was thinking. Like that. I think I rewatched Alien 3 too, to be honest with you. So like, I don't know. I don't know what that says about.
I mean, no, I think
movies themselves, but
I mean, it's like it's movies that it's the reverse of what an uplifting threequel does. It's like, oh, this is so bleak that my life or life in general is not that bleak because this is just way worse. You turn off that movie and you're like, holy shit, things are not so
there's
so
still
bad.
Hope on Earth now,
right?
Where I am,
right?
What's
up, Ben? How are you?
Ben is saying it's the best of the series. There's part of me that totally agrees with that statement.
George Romero would probably agree with Ben and
I think
say
so.
that it's the best of the series.
I think Dawn is the most culturally affecting.
Easily.
Sure. I don't think that can be argued.
But Night, I have so much love. I mean, Night, my heart is in Night because of just.
I've told you that my sacrilegious.
Story.
I actually prefer the remake of Night. So
it's not sacrilegious because first of all,
Romero was
Night.
Yeah, he was involved in it and stuff. So
Savini directed it. It's family. That movie is family. So
they literally remade it to make money off of his story that he didn't the first time.
Right. And he went back and revised it. He didn't, he could have just done a shot for shot remake. It would have been kind of lame. But George, being George, is like, how could I do this differently than I did before? And he like found a way to do it. I'm like, God damn it, I love you, George.
Yeah.
For that.
I love the original, the black and white. It's beautiful. It is classic. It is bleak. But my favorite zombie movie ever, it might be that remake. And that's weird, I know. But regardless, I think Day, it's easily arguable that Day is the best movie out of all of them.
It
really is.
There's I could sit. I mean, if you want to be like a good director, or if you want to like go to directing school, I say that in quotes.
Right.
If you want to like learn how to if you want to watch a master, like just like go to town, watch that scene. No zombies, no gore, no anything. Just actors in a room with conflict, and just watch them go to town. And it's a very long scene. And the best part, by the way, the tension rises.
Got the best performances I
Sure.
think in the trilogy, in my
Sure.
opinion.
I would agree with that, acting wise, for sure.
Yeah.
And the tension rises, and then who diffuses the tension? The scene keeps going. Just when you think it's going to break, Dr. Logan enters the room, and then he diffuses everything. And you see how they've been carrying on, where Rhodes builds up and becomes so hot-headed, and then Logan knows how to play Rhodes like a fiddle until he finds out what Logan's been doing behind his back, and that changes everything.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about all this enormous amount of praise we're pouring on this movie, and I'm like, and it was my fucking number one. And now my list is completely done.
I'm curious to know, Ben says, admittedly, Night and Dawn had story issues. They were fixed in Day and Night remake. I want to hear, Ben, I'm curious to hear what you think the story issues were in Night.
I never saw the Day remake, but I didn't hear anything good about the Day
remake.
The
Day of the Dead remake? I don't
think I ever heard anything good about that.
Very bad. I don't know. I honestly don't know what Ben's talking about there, but
are you sure he doesn't mean the Dawn remake, which I don't even consider part of that. I enjoy
the Dawn remake is not family, but I do love that Dawn remake.
It's a fun movie. It's just not Romero.
Right.
Of
course. Okay, so are we at, hold on a second.
That was your number 2.
That was my number 2. Now,
so now we're at
one.
God damn it.
I'm so scared.
Well, I mean, I've been painted into a damn corner here, and this is my number 1 too, which has been destroyed. So everyone watching or listening, know that Day of the Dead was my number 1.
This is now a game of strategy. It's no longer just making a list. It's a game of knocking people out and knocking people down. So while
Jeff was waxing poetic about the masterpiece the Day of the Dead is, I had to make a quick decision about what my new number 1 is. And I'm going to do this because it is my favorite horror franchise. Maybe aside from Evil Dead, but it's my favorite like long-running horror franchise character. I'm gonna have to put it in there, even though I don't even feel like it will be remotely close to my number 1.
I know what you're gonna say.
I know what I'm gonna say because I don't really have a choice, Jeff. It's hard to pick something to put it number 1. But look, I have been a longtime fan, super fan of Don Mancini's Chucky series.
I knew you were going to say
that. I absolutely love it. Love the Child's Play series, the Child's Play movies. I think it's the only long-running series that has ran that long, is now a TV series that has been controlled writing-wise by one human being, which I find to be extremely interesting. The fact that one man has it's
amazing.
Steered something for that long and not given up and still passionate about it. He's still passionate.
Respect.
Yeah, total respect. So while it is not even remotely the best of those movies, I will say Child's Play 3, the movie that a lot of people don't like. I
like Child's Play 3.
I like Child's Play 3. I watched it a ton in the 90s. It has a few scenes that, as a kid, totally freaked me out.
Oh my God, yes.
When Chucky put real bullets in the guns during the exercise, I remember as a kid, I was like, oh my God, that's like
terrifying.
Absolutely the most terrifying thing ever. It's also got one of the best neck slicing scenes in a movie ever with Chucky and the Barbara guy. And can I say that
respecting continuity too?
Even if you dislike this movie, Chucky's death in this movie fucking rules.
Fuck yeah.
His death in this movie, which creates obviously his new look, which stuck. I love that his Bride of Chucky look actually stuck through the ages, but without the death
and Seed, it's stuck in Seed.
It's stuck in Seed. Well, I'm saying you saw it in costumes when he would show up in pop culture. He would look like the Bride of Chucky.
That was his Jason. That was his Jason reformation,
thing. Right?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't get that without the absolutely badass, amazingly executed death in Child's Play 3. So while it is not remotely my number 1, nor would it be in my top 5, because of my absolute adoration for Don Mancini and Brad Dourif's Chucky, I will say my number 1 threequel is now Child's Play 3 because of one Jeff Frumess ruining my list completely. So there you go.
And here I thought I was being a gentleman by putting Day of the Dead as number 2. I really was.
Damn it, man. Well,
I just want to say, no, Child's
remember,
Play 3 is fine.
Day of the Dead was my number 2 Army of Darkness was my number 1, I had to move all this around, and I moved
Right.
it around, and then you ruined number 2.
See how much better see what we used to do, people. Forever.
Next time you're going first. Next time you go first.
Fine, I don't care.
And I'm ruining your list. That's what's happening.
No, it's a strategy. It's a strategy game now. It used to not be a strategy game. It used to be you just, if we had the same one, we'd be like, oh, that's the same one. But that's not fun. That's not dodgeball.
I know you're right.
We're playing dodgeball now. And it's fun.
I am fine with the rules and I will abide by them, but Lord in heaven, my whole list is destroyed. It's just, I'll shut up about it. It's fine. I like Child's Play 3.
Listen, I like Child's Play 3 too. And one thing you didn't mention, the thing that always stuck.
Yeah, I want to guess your first one really quick.
You can in a second.
Before you say it. Okay.
Of course. I will lead it in. I'm surprised. I'm shocked.
I can't believe I thought it was Day. I mean, Day of the Dead's a good choice for you, I feel.
I am shocked that you didn't get that this was my first one. And I mean,
I might be wrong too. I might
egregious. This is egregious.
I have 2 guesses, Jeff. I have 2
okay.
guesses.
I think you're going to get it too. Child's Play 3, the scene where the nerdy guy dies is so
soul-crushing,
tragic and sad. Yeah. You think, oh, is he going to get up at the end? No, he took a grenade to the stomach and died to save everybody. And right, didn't he jump on it to save everybody?
Yeah.
You know, in the IDF, there is they have like 3 different types of medals of honor for soldiers, and like the second highest honor was awarded to someone who that actually happened to. He was a young guy in his platoon. A grenade fell into his platoon and was going to kill them all. And he said, what's in Judaism, we have a prayer called the Shema Yisrael Adonai Elokeinu Adonai Echad. He said the Shema and jumped on the grenade and took the grenade. He absorbed, it killed him. He took the grenade to save all of his platoon members. And every time when I heard that, I immediately thought of Child's Play 3. And that's kind of fucked up.
It's kind of fucked up a little bit.
But it's also
that's a beautiful story about a sacrifice.
It's a beautiful story of sacrifice, but like it makes the death in Child's Play 3 that much like more brutal to me, because I heard a story of like how that really happened to someone,
dude.
And it's brutal, dude. It's also fucking brutal. Child's Play 3.
That whole scene, the entire chunk of that scene is just going to show that like Don Mancini does this thing where he kills kids.
Yeah, he kills kids, dude.
If you watch the new show, which is in continuity, I'm just saying he does kill. There's kids that are killed by Chucky.
Okay.
In that.
Well,
that's
thanks
not
for
a spoiler.
spoiling.
That's not a spoiler.
It's a spoiler.
I'm not going to say how, but like it's even though I've been with the series since the beginning and I'm a huge fan.
Same.
It's still, even then, and Chucky is overtly a silly thing. It's still hard to watch him actually murder a child. Like,
sure,
and Child's Play 3 is arguably the one out of those first 3 where he does it kind of the most. Yeah,
Child's Play 2 is dope though. That is a dope.
Child's Play 2 so fucking rules. That's of those 3. Child's Play 2 is my favorite.
Yeah, it's the best one. He has the best death too. He like melts into goo. It's so great.
Yeah.
I love Bride of Chucky.
Bride of Chucky.
That was part of the late
man.
90s. That late 90s dimension straight to video. It wasn't straight to video, but
that was Don Mancini doing. That was him unleashed. You know what I mean? And Ronnie,
totally.
Ronnie,
he does the same thing in Seed of Chucky, man.
Yeah,
which I have a post. I have a poster. I have a giant 24x40 poster of Seed of Chucky. That's
I love Seed of Chucky. Yeah, I'm just a big fan.
No, I applaud your number 1. Okay, let us go. Let us go now.
Remember, I want 2 guesses.
You can have 2 guesses.
I've earned that.
Do you want me? This is like the final boss. So you're going up against like the final boss now. I'm like a guy and I'm like got all my things. I'm like,
Oh, he's Dan is saying that there's a rap song with movie quotes from Chucky in it. That's cool.
Yes, that is cool, Dan. Okay.
So
this film,
I could just guess before you say anything. If you want.
But what's the fun in that?
Okay, go ahead.
I'll give you this first hint. This film, much like Army of Darkness, is also a third film that really should be its own film or could be its
it.
own film. And it's just a shame that it's not. All right, what is it? What do you think it is?
Well, it's obviously the movie that also has the same title as another movie that stars the greatest actor of all time, which is Nicolas Cage. Right? So he was in a movie that has the same title as this movie. Am I onto something here?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
What?
I really don't. What are you talking about?
How do you... Okay.
What is it?
Halloween 3?
No.
It's not Halloween 3?
It's not Halloween 3. Yes.
That's amazing. Okay,
yes!
One more guess. I get one more guess.
By the way, Halloween 3 absolutely was on an early version of
Dan
my
has
list.
been saying Halloween 3 constantly.
Dan, it was in my honorable
Dan,
mentions.
it's in mine too. It's in mine too.
I love Halloween 3. We're going
Same.
to talk about that briefly. We always do an honorable mentions afterward.
Right.
It's not that. I can't believe you didn't get this.
All right, well then I got one more and it's going to be wrong. This has destroyed me.
Dude, I just gave you the biggest fucking hint ever. It's a movie. It's the third movie of a franchise that really deserves to have its own title and not have a 3 at the end.
That would be Season of the Witch. That fits that description.
That does.
Perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Does that not fit this perfectly?
You're right. It does, but it's not Season of the Witch.
Okay, so this is the only other answer I can think of. Maybe I'm just having trauma from my list, and
I think so.
It's just the list has been so destroyed. But Jeff, the only other guess that I have at this moment, unless you gave me like a week to ponder it, which I don't have. This is not a good answer, but this is the only thing I can think is Return of the Living Dead Part 3.
Absolutely correct.
Thank God, something went right.
Absolutely correct. The Return of the Living Dead.
I win because of that. I win the whole thing. I did it.
No, you don't.
Yes, I did.
No,
I win. I won.
The Return of the Living Dead 3 is on the fucking thumbnail, Bob. Come on.
Okay, I didn't go by the thumbnail. I didn't.
Yeah, but
you said you even told me that the thumbnail.
Return of the Living Dead 3, man, like, is to me like the gold standard of what a threequel could be. And technically, it's not a threequel. Technically, it's actually it's also a part 4.
You know what is the bitch of this? Is if you didn't describe it like you did, I would have said Return of the Living Dead 3 first. You described it.
Sorry, I'm just so drunk on maniacality.
If you let me guess before you said anything, I would have chosen Return of the Living Dead 3 first.
Rue knows. Rue knows. Yeah, no, listen, it's technically, if you think of Return of the Living Dead as a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, which it is, Return of the Living Dead 3 is not only a part 3, but it's actually a part 4.
Right.
But it has part 3 in the title. It could also, it is a 3.
It is a 3.
You could just call it Kurt and Julie, and it would be a great fucking movie. It doesn't need to be called Return of the Living Dead Part 3. It stands on its own. I love this movie to no end. I saw it when I was 15.
It's a great movie.
It's a great fucking movie. I saw it when I was 15, and I was so deeply affected by the ending of the movie because I couldn't, in the same way that you can't, you're shocked when Chucky kills a kid. I was so shocked that Brian Usna and John Penny had the balls to kill these characters that had been through the mill in the way that he did. The single most nihilistic, bleak ending, more so than Day of the Dead, more so than any film on this list. It is the anti-feel-good film where they simply, the only way to escape is through death. And it is just, it destroyed me then. Every time I watch it, it destroys me in a little bit. I've obviously grown accustomed to watching it, and I've seen it so many times. And, the last time I watched it, I was really blown away by how it's a movie about codependency. And yes, it's a Frankenstein story. Yes, it's a Romeo and Juliet story. And yes, it's like a zombie film. Yes, it has like these elements of like love and death, which are some of my favorite themes in horror. It's one of the reasons why I love Cemetery Man so much. But this is
Cemetery
a movie
Man.
at its core.
Is it Del Muerte?
Yeah, great film.
Yeah.
I spoke to both Brian Usna and John Penny. Had them. I still unreleased interviews that I've yet to put on this channel, where I talked
What
to
are you
them
waiting
about
for?
this. I don't know. I know, right? Well, I have to go through them, and it's just one of them's Brian Usna's interview is 3 hours long. I just haven't had the patience to sit down.
On that, man.
I know, right? Like I
you have
interviewed the fucking man,
right?
And I got to tell him about my feelings about this movie that affected me so much that he made, and and I recall them kind of disagreeing with me, but they were wrong. Like, it is a movie. I mean, they made the movie.
They were wrong.
They were wrong. They were kind of wrong. I think John Penny agreed with me. I don't know. One of them I think agreed with me in that.
I just like the idea of you telling them they're wrong about their movie.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. No, I totally did. I think so. I might have to jog my memory, but Return of the Living Dead 3 is a movie about codependency and what one will put up with in order to stay safe in a love that is no longer safe.
Correct.
Kurt loves Julie. Julie is dead and she eats brains. It feels so stupid saying those things, but the material is treated really seriously. The tone is super grim and serious. And it works. It really, really works. And you have this guy, he literally winds up in the sewers. Talk about the metaphor of the bunker in Day of the Dead. They find themselves in the literal gutter, on the run. And it's such a scathing portrait of young beauty on the verge of death with no future.
It's young love corrupted.
And what is their plan? Their plan is she's decomposing. She can't stop eating brains. Their plan is to run away to Seattle and he's going to join a band. Their ideas, like what they want to do, everything's doomed. There is no escape for them. And literally, as at the end, we get this little Night of the Living Dead homage. And at the end, he gives her the guy who's been helping them this whole time. Take this guy up the fucking, there's a light coming from a manhole. They have to climb a ladder to get out, get out of the thing. It's so obvious what they have to do and they can't even do it. And that's the moment. Kurt has a moment of clarity as he wallows in this codependency with someone who's literally addicted to eating brains, where he suddenly realizes that I have to walk away from this. This is unhealthy. This is going to kill me. I have to walk away because there is the light at the end of the tunnel and they can't even get up the ladder. They become so dysfunctional. So he walks away. And then, of course, he chooses love. And in choosing love, he chooses death. And it's just, there's so much going on in it. And I love it. I love this film so much. And I wish there was a part 4. There was a part 4 called Hail Mary, that apparently there's a treatment for, and it'll never come out. But I mean, I love that.
There was a really bad part 4, right? I believe
there's a really bad part 4 and part 5 that were shot back to back, and they're not family.
I've watched them. I watched them.
So they're right over there on my shelf, and I don't know why I own them.
You own them?
Yes, I have.
Let me ask you
DVD.
this. So, two things I've observed listening to you speak about it so lovingly. Why do you think? And I agree with you on everything. And I truly do love Return of the Living Dead 3. Not as much as 2. I love 2 the most.
Of course 2 would be your favorite. Or
no. I'm sorry. I love 1 the most.
Right.
But I also love 2.
Of course you would love 2.
I watched 2 first, and also 2 is much sillier. But I love all 3. I love all 3. But why do you think that 3 never got its just desserts in pop culture? You got to see the return flicks.
Brian, you have to.
What
see
are you doing, man?
Why
the first three?
I mean, why? Wait. Why?
I feel like even so Return of the Living Dead 3 does have a very loyal cult following, but why do you think it never? I don't know. I feel as good as it is, it should be bigger.
It's the third film because
it's the third.
It's been relegated.
That's kind of what I was trying to get out of you.
Yeah, it's been hobbled. No.
Yeah.
It was hobbled by the fact that it is the third film and quasi straight to video. I believe it had a small theatrical release for 2 weeks or something. It doesn't really qualify it. I mean, it is a straight to video Trimark
Right.
My beloved straight to video Trimark films. That period from 92 to 95, mwah, just like
I can
glorious.
hear the logo now.
Yeah, I can hear the logo now. Cyborg 2, Free Jack, or Free Fall, Free Jack, Brain Smasher, A Love Story.
Brain Smasher, yeah.
Oh, just Leprechaun 2, just the best Arachnophobia. No, that had a theatrical release, but it was still
that was wide. That was wide release. I guess my point was sort of like the thing that if you look at all these, even starting out with my number 5 and down, like the one thing you can say about threes is that they do one of two things. It seems is they either bring you back to the core of the first movie and remind you why you loved this whole thing to begin with, or they give you an entirely new experience with a new tone and almost a new genre with the same premise.
Return of the Living Dead kind of does both of those things, and that's what also makes it so great. Sorry, Return of the Living Dead 3. It has that. I mean, Return of the Living Dead ends the same way. Everybody dies, but for some reason, when you walk out of Return of the Living Dead, you're like, that was fun. Let's do it again. And with the end of Return of the Living Dead is so bleak.
It's bleak. Yeah, but
especially
it's still fun
Tina,
though. It's the execution.
Oh, man. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Whereas there's something about the end, watching them literally, their last words are where we belong, as they're in a fucking incinerator burning to death and kissing and just hugging each other. And it is just, and then it just fades to black. I'm going, that's it. That's how it ends. That's the movie. And I thought about that ending for a week straight. It did not leave my mind at 15 years old, burned in my brain. I own the very VHS that I got from that I rented from the video store where I first saw it for the first time. I haven't watched it. I might be the last person that rented it even. It just sits there unwound, as this artifact of the shock, the sheer shock that I felt that a movie could go there and do that. And they do so, it's chock full of so much stuff. They go to so many different places. And I guess the only thing that really could have only made Return of the Living Dead 3 better is that they've already established this precedent. We're going to bring back actors that die in the first movie. Like, bring back Don Calfa, bring back James Karen again. I mean, maybe the movie wouldn't be what it would be if you had.
I don't know if that would fit. I don't know if that would fit with 3.
Don Calfa was supposed to be in.
Was he supposed to be in it?
He was supposed to be in it. I mean, it would have been interesting. I love that they
without them
the
in
Darrow
it
mythology.
Gives it all the things you're describing and the tone. Sure. I think without them in it, even if they were intended to be, it gives Return 3 that like a little bit more slanted towards respectful seriousness and emotion that you're trying to pull out of it, even if maybe Brian doesn't agree. But you know what I mean? If they had him, I
remember. I don't remember what he said. I don't know either. It's either him or John Penny is the writer, and he was also the assistant editor on the first film. So I actually got to ask him about the first film as well, and he was like telling me like he was. I remember him saying like we were looking at the dailies and we were like sweating bullets because Dan O'Bannon didn't shoot any coverage, as you can see. Now, one might say that was a green mistake as a first-time writer-director, but retroactively, decades later, it comes off as masterful because you look at these master shots, these wide shots, these ensemble shots, and it feels like it almost feels more about the actors than it is about the camera.
Yeah.
It's all in service to the performances, and
it's also a way for a director in the studio system to control the final edit.
Sure. I think I have nothing to back this up. I bet you're fucking right. I bet you
I know I'm probably right. Dan O'Bannon was smart enough to be like, if I shoot more and give them options, they'll fuck my movie up.
You are. I think
I'm an editor, Jeff. What do you think? I know. Yeah,
I think you just nailed it on the fucking head. He framed all of those shots in that way because he knew
Yeah.
that the only way that this was going to work, and because he
And they have
literally
to
had
keep
an
everything
ensemble,
in.
right? He had an ensemble of 6 characters that he
Right.
wrote, and he wants to keep all his 6 characters in the shot. Let's shoot everything wide. We'll get
So you
everything
can't
in the
cut
wide.
anybody out. You can't cut anything out. You
And
just
I'll
have
tell
to-
you,
yeah.
the movie is better. I'll tell you this too. Nobody talks about this. When you talk about like oneers and like unbroken takes, next time you watch Return of the Living Dead,
Right.
that opening scene is all, I believe it's, I don't know how long it goes for, but it's unbroken. And it's just them going back and forth on the set. They're going into the foreground and out of the foreground. And I'm sitting there going, motherfucker, they're not cutting. Like he's just on they have a steady cam and they are just going behind the shelves. And it's just so.
No, it's in-camera editing, you know. Like,
yeah, it's just
like
oh, God,
Spielberg's a master of in-camera editing. Same with
I love in-camera editing. My taste, which I'm always trying to bridge the gap between my taste and ability, as we talk about on this often.
Right,
it's impossible.
In-camera editing requires a crew, a focus puller.
Of course it does.
Everything.
But it doesn't mean that you're not gonna fucking try to do it. And it's like, you know, it's funny is the funny thing about in-camera editing is yes, it saves you time in post, but it like the amount of rehearsal and execution that's required.
It's a little bit like a play. It's a little bit like a play.
It's exactly like a play.
You have to tell actors in spatially how to hit their marks.
Sure,
where the camera's going to be.
It's all about blocking. Yeah,
blocking, movement, everything. So yeah, it's hard. It's way
well,
harder.
it's one step more than a play because now you have the camera, the camera element, and the sound element all have to add up to make it. But what's interesting is they say that film is a director's medium, TV is the writer's medium, and stage is the actor's medium. But here's a situation where film is in service to the actors,
right,
instead of the director, and that's what's interesting about it.
Agree.
I think that, I mean, we're right at a good, healthy 2 hours. I said to Bob, Bob, let's try to do this in 70 minutes, and of course, that was never going to fucking happen.
Do you want to read our honorables real quick?
Oh yeah, fuck, we forgot the yes, of course. We got to. All right, a little more padding because we have to do honorables. Go ahead. Let's hear yours.
So, we don't need to talk about all these, but this is the list I had to choose from. I'm not going to read the ones I've already said in my list, but I had to fix myself on the go because of Jeff's rules.
But that made the game. That turned a list into a game and made it more interesting.
It made it more interesting and more fun. The first one I have written down is Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College.
I have it too.
I enjoy that movie. I think it's a really fun fucking movie.
Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, it's a totally fun movie. I also have one that's kind of maligned, but I like it because I grew up with it. Poltergeist 3.
Okay.
Poltergeist 3 is an extremely weird movie that does feel like it almost is set apart from the first two, but like it just has a different tone and it's a different setting. Weird movie. Obviously Friday the 13th Part 3, which I love because it's a nice sleazy ass movie. Like it's like maybe the sleaziest movie of all of them. Of course I had Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
As did I. I mean,
this one is not a favorite, but I wrote it down anyway. Jaws 3D.
Okay.
How could I not write that down? I enjoy.
Hold on. Best shark eating scene in all of Jaws's.
You think so?
When the fucking dude at the end gets eaten, that's fucking terrifying.
Oh yeah, it is terrifying. It's not my favorite, but yeah.
Okay, Quint is the best, obviously, but after Quint is this dude. He hands down.
Jaws
he literally
3
gets swallowed and eaten alive, and we
Yeah.
watch him get chewed up in the mouth of Jaws.
No, it's gnarly.
It's gnarly.
Jaws 3D as a movie it's something else. I would have preferred.
Oh yes.
I would have preferred the original pitch, which was Jaws 3 People 0, which was the parody movie within the franchise.
Right, Jaws 3 People 0. And Glenn
Louis
Danzig,
Gossett Jr.
If you're a Patreon, I don't know if it's public yet, but if you're a Patreon, you could hear Glenn Danzig's review of Jaws 3D.
Jesus. I would listen to that. I also had Tremors 3, which isn't very good.
Oh, Back to Perfection.
Back to Perfection. Well, is that Back to Perfection or is that's the ass?
No, you're right. That's the prequel. Tremors 3 is the prequel.
The Western is 4.
Then Tremors 3 is Back to Perfection.
Tremors
3 is Ass Blasters.
Tremors 3 is the Ass Blasters, definitely, 100%. So I don't. Tremors 2 fucking is the
Love
best
it.
sequel without
Love it.
question. I
Love
love
it.
Tremors 2.
Love it. Amen.
3 is the best of the rest of them. And it's
3 is
okay.
just
It's
goofy as fuck.
It's goofy and it's fun. It's whatever.
Yeah, ass blasters, man.
Ass blasters. The fact they came up with that name. And my last one is Leprechaun 3, which is when he goes to Vegas.
Vegas, yep.
Very fun movie. I prefer
Pogo
Leprechaun
Stick Death.
Pogo Stick Death, good. I prefer Leprechaun in space because it is just absolutely stupid and horrible and amazing.
And I asked when I interviewed Miguel Nunez Jr. for this channel, which I still haven't uploaded.
Jeff, what are you doing?
I know, right? I 100% asked him about Leprechaun 4 in space. I forgot what he said. That's
incredible.
But I did talk to him about that movie.
So yeah, that'll probably come up if we ever do a number 4 horror.
For sure.
But yeah, Leprechaun 3, I think it's a really fun movie.
Sure.
I actually don't love all the Leprechaun movies, but 3 and 4.
I love them all.
3 and 4 are my
In
shit.
the Hood, Back to the Hood. Give me them all. I'll take every one of them, man. I love
and
Leprechauns.
I did write it down, but it's not even remotely my favorite. Critters 3. It's okay.
I put Critters 3 on my honorable mentions.
I prefer Critters 4. Oh.
Yeah, Critters 4 is like
Critters 4 is insanity. I love it.
So what you did, I will add to your list and of honorable mentions. I have the Howling 3, the Marsupials.
Okay.
Which is super goofy. Dan, I've never seen House 3 or House 4. I've seen House 1, House 2, by the way.
Rules.
No one ever talks about fucking rules.
House 2
so good.
Rules. I like House
and I've been
as well.
waiting, I want those Arrow releases. And I've just never, I didn't pull the trigger on the box set when I had the chance, and now it's like super hard to come by. And I feel like, how can I revisit House until I have all 4 of them and I revisit them all at the same time, or watch them all at the same time? So I have actually avoided rewatching House and House 2, but I think I'm going to do it this for 31 days. I think I'm going to do House and House 2.
All 4 houses.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The other 2 are really hard to come by, but House 3 isn't even. House 3 is another movie that was just given the title House 3.
I love movies like that. It's like the Troll 3.
Right. Contamination 0.7.
I almost wrote that down, even though it's not my favorite, but it is a horror.
Just as a goofy.
The Crawlers, Contamination 0.7.
Yeah. Just because it's so goofy.
It's so goofy.
So another honorable mention that you literally named off everything. Here's 2 more honorable mentions that I will add to this list.
Okay.
Honestly, we don't have to talk about Halloween 3 because we all know why we love Halloween 3. It's so
fine.
fucking just
it's been discussed to death.
To death. And I really want Halloween 3 Part 2, and I hope we get it someday.
You do know there's a Nick Cage movie called Season of the Witch, right?
Yes, there is. Okay,
that's
now
what
I know
I meant.
What you're talking about.
That's what I meant.
With Ron Perlman, and it's fucking awesome.
I don't know if it's awesome, but yeah.
No,
sure.
it's awesome. It is awesome. Okay. And they're like not sure if they're transporting a witch.
I never saw
it. Not sure if she's a witch, but fucking awesome.
Okay.
Nicolas Cage is a crusader knight who leaves the crusade. It's great. Just see it.
I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you to see any Nicolas Cage film because I love Nicolas Cage so much, but we all know this.
Yes.
So the other ones that are not on your list, I have, and I didn't put this on my list, obviously, because I couldn't have 2 Brian Usna films. Beyond Reanimator is a great, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to
Beyond Reanimator is pretty awesome. Yeah.
Fucking awesome, dude. It's really, really awesome. And again, it just, it was made in Spain, and Combs is the only one who's American in it, and everybody else is doing an accent or American accent. And that was when what's his face? Brian was producing films in Spain. He did, what's it called? Faust, the Faust superhero film, which is really crazy to rewatch, by the way. Which I revisited recently.
I almost wrote that down, but I was like, that's never going to be on my top 5. Even though
Beyond? I couldn't put it on my top 5.
I do love it. It's just it wasn't ever going to
honorable
make the
mention.
list.
Honorable mention. And then here's another honorable mention that is technically not a 3rd film, but it is secretly Creepshow 3, and that is Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, which is the true Creepshow 3. Yes, there is a Creepshow 3 that was licensed, that was made by Richard Rubenstein, who is George Romero's partner in Laurel Entertainment, and was also just, he's been making a lot of bad deals. And, that's how you get Day of the Dead Part 2 and just like a bunch of goofy stuff, the Day of the Dead remake and the TV show. It's just not good stuff. But he also licensed out Creepshow 3, or we got Creepshow 3 straight to Redbox BS. And then separate. Whoa, Bob just went weird. Bob, are you okay?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Did I like smudge like the way you just like turned into a smudge? That was really scary.
You've been completely crisp. So
that was just Bob.
Color Out of Space. I like Color Out of Space.
Yeah, but fuck that filmmaker. He's a piece of shit.
That guy is learning about what that guy did.
Yeah, he's a scumbag. But Nick Cage is fun in that movie, and he does do the vampire's kiss voice at the request of that director, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's not great in the movie, but it's great because we want to see Nick Cage do that. No, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie is the true Creepshow 3 because it uses all of the personnel that worked on Creepshow and Creepshow 2. John Harrison, who did the score and I believe shot both Creepshow and Creepshow 2, directs Creepshow 3. It's, Tales from the Dark Side was George Romero's TV series. It has its DNA is the true third heir to the Creepshow.
It's like how Jean-Claude Van Damme's Cyborg is Masters of the Universe too.
That's crazy. You
didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, it was supposed
to.
That was originally Masters of the Universe too.
And then that in and of itself got 3 movies.
Right.
2 other movies.
Right.
Cyborg 2 I love Cyborg 2
I like the Cyborg franchise, man. I love Cyborg.
Attached to Cyborg 2, not just because Angelina Jolie is beautiful in it, but like Jack Palance is great. It's such a weird,
it's a great movie.
Quirky, straight to video 90s movie.
So good.
Pinwheel espionage. It's so great.
Those movies are like my shit. That's like what I love.
Oh man, me too, man. Yeah. But yeah, so Tales from the Dark Side movie counts as a threequel in my heart, and I wanted to just make a notation of that, and I think that concludes our honorable mentions. I gotta say, Bob, this was a blast to do.
It's pretty dense. It was pretty dense, like the fact that I had to fill in all these holes and it did make it more interesting. And
it kept you on your toes. It wasn't just paint by numbers, man.
It wasn't paint by numbers.
It was a journey.
I still can't believe. I actually can't believe I discounted the fact that Return of the Living Dead Part 3 was your number 1. I assumed Day of the Dead.
I was so fucking nervous. I was so nervous.
I assumed Day of the Dead.
That's my victory. I don't care what you say. You guessed it, but I won this.
I
won this.
If you didn't preface, I would have said Return of the Living Dead 3, but you described it in a devious way that sounded like
bullshit.
This
Witch. Isn't no fucking Rumpelstiltskin game where you guess my name and
I would have guessed it first. I would have said it. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
Army of Darkness would be my number 1. It's fine.
Guys, I just want to thank Bob so much for dropping by and doing this as he does from time to time.
Sure.
Bob, couple of plugs here. We should have done this at the beginning. Bob runs the Thundergrunt network, and
it's not
he also
a network.
has whatever.
It's
Thundergrunt
podcast. It is a podcast.
Sorry, my bad. Thundergrunt podcast.
Network implies there's several feeds.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thundergrunt podcast. He also has thundergrunt.com. They do the Writers Blockbuster show, which is great, especially if you want to learn. Yeah, I was going to
say, if anyone's interested, if you listen to Thundergrunt podcast, we're going to be doing first the original Hellraiser. It's a script podcast. We're going to break down the original Hellraiser. Then we're going to do the new Hellraiser.
Nice.
So we're doing 1-2 punch this October. Both Hellraiser movies. The original.
You mean original remake?
Original remake. Yes, we're going to do both. We did it with Candyman last year. We did the original.
And I got to tell you, I've learned a lot about screenwriting structure stuff from listening to that podcast. And
if anyone listening is a big fan of WNUF or Lovely Molly, the two guys who wrote those movies are the guys I did the show with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the editing of one of the segments in VHS too.
Well, that's me. Yeah. But Jamie also wrote the zombie segment in VHS 2. He also wrote the Bigfoot movie Exists, if you've seen that. So yeah, those guys know what they're doing.
It's a great show. And Bob also has his YouTube channel. And he puts all his shorts out, and it's great.
You can find me at Thundergrunt Bob on IG and Twitter. It'll have all the links there.
So if you're into Bob's crazy sense of humor as I am, check out his stuff. Thanks. And all that stuff. The link tree is in the description of this video. So
thank you.
Click on that. Check all that stuff out. And I'm not going to do the Patreon spiel. Support us on Patreon if you like. Buy a cup of coffee and whatnot. And we will, or buy a t-shirt, and we will see you next time. Rue, thank you so much. Brian, thank you for joining us again. Brian's been
thank you everyone for commenting.
Totally. And Dan too. Dan's a new Patreon. Thank you, Dan. And
Brian, thank you for loving that one short I made. he actually is referencing it in the comments.
Rue says it's nice to see you again, Bob. Looking forward to the Hellraiser episode.
Thank you for listening. Yeah, seriously, Rue. Thank you.
Bird is the word, Obama Umau Mau. Okay, and we have a wonderful way of saying goodbye here on the channel. As always, we say peace and hair grease, and we will end